Greetings, Moors. Welcome to the open discussion, which is now convened as of June 2nd, 2026, at approximately 7:20 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm glad to see everyone in attendance today. I would like to start off by stating that the Sultan will obviously not be hosting today's meeting, as he cannot be in attendance at this time. So when he's not able to be in attendance, I, as the Prime Minister of Kill Bay, will be hosting the open discussions that are now every Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. All right. So, as due to the customary norms, right, of the empire, I also like to briefly state that and remind everybody that this is, in fact, in truth, the de jure Empire of Morocco. Unlike some people who may be hypnotized or confused about the ANPAC 2.0 situation, who are pretending to be the de jure empire. Um, we got to keep in mind that the de jure sultan is, in fact, Abdul Al-Kabir. All right. So with that being stated, let's go ahead and start today's agenda. Okay. We'll be speaking about uh, how to identify extraterritorial jurisdiction in treaties relating to the Empire of Morocco. Okay, so I will preface this by saying that many Moors, um, we used to, or some still do, find themselves arguing, with people who may not understand, um, friends, family, uh, you know, anybody, right? Um, about the treaty that most Moors are familiar with, and this being the treaty that they're only familiar with, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786. Um, a lot of people think that it's just a maritime treaty. However, I would like to again restate the title of today's agenda, or the theme of today's agenda, which is how to identify extraterritorial jurisdiction in treaties relating to the Empire of Morocco. Okay, so we'll use that treaty, the TOPOF, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786, as an example. But we'll first start off with this reading to first understand what ETJ, or extraterritorial jurisdiction, actually is. And a few elements about it. Okay. So if I can get a reader to start us off here with these first few points. Would anybody like to take on reading?
Islam.
All right. Thank you, Wazir.
So it is a legal mechanism where a state projects its own domestic laws and judicial power into geographic boundaries of another sovereign state. When the U.S. exercised ETJ in Morocco, a U.S. citizen standing in Tangier or Marrakesh was legally insulated from Moroccan law, answering instead to the U.S. consul.
Yeah, point of interest. Now, let's keep in mind that this is a study guide with accumulated AI information that I have accumulated, not fully edited, but to convey a certain point. So don't take each and every word as a profound fact coming from AI. So as it states, Tangier, Marrakesh, we got to understand here that what what's commonly known as America is actually within the Empire of Morocco, right? So let's curve that hijack, right? Um, so let's keep that in mind. But I like to also state that as it relates to extraterritorial jurisdiction, I just want to start with the basics. I would like to update people's understanding as it relates to colonialism because some people still have outdated understandings. Um, Extraterritorial jurisdiction. Again, it says the legal mechanism is the legal mechanism where a state projects its own domestic laws and judicial power into the geographical boundaries of another sovereign state. Okay, so this is a form of colonialism. We're talking about domestic laws, right? Policies and judicial power. So we're talking about two branches of government at the very least. In truth, we're talking about three. So we're talking about entire state government projecting its power, its legal mechanism into the geographical boundaries of another sovereign state. So its station, its actual government setup, its judicial power rests in another sovereign state. So this is what's called extraterritorial jurisdiction when this type of setup has in fact occurred. So this is an important element, right? An obvious element, to some, I hope, but an important element to say, okay, there's many treaties with Morocco, but can you call out which one is identifying extraterritorial jurisdiction, right? If the Empire of Morocco in truth is the whole world, well, can you call that out lawfully, right? How can you do that? What are the elements to do that, right? So that's what today's study session or open discussion is about. Um, so it goes to say, and remember this is the hijack, just that's the hijack here. When the U.S. exercised ETJ in Morocco, as it's doing right now, a U.S. citizen standing in Tangier or in this landmass, nonetheless, was legally insulated from Moroccan law, answering instead to the U.S. consul, right? So the America was allowed to be here. Let's start with the very basics, right? As I always state, the 13 colonies, i.e., the colonizers, came here. They changed their name to the United States of America. That means they were on the east coast of this land and colonized their way west, right? Now this whole land mass is known as America. Now that the Empire of Morocco at that time, was not around, it was Moroccan laws. So obviously they didn't have to abide by Moroccan law, but it was U.S. laws that that they abide by strictly, right? So um Wazir, if you can continue on with the reading here at capitulations, we'll get into to this element.
It's capitulation generally means to surrender, but in international law, it comes from the Latin word capitula, meaning chapters or sections. A capitulation is simply a treaty broken down into distinct, numbered legal chapters. A regime exists when an exception becomes a permanent institution. Under the capitulation regime, foreign consulates were no longer just diplomatic offices. They functioned as fully active domestic courthouses of a foreign nation sitting on Moroccan soil.
All right, point of interest. So before we get into this example, um, this we got to understand here that somebody got to put themselves on mute. Okay, I appreciate that. All right. So this term let's understand here that some people may have read books that have stated things about um, the Moors, the priests and priestesses, the the secret order people, the magi's, all this types of stuff. Um, it's the government that has always controlled the narrative and governed the landmass. It's the government, which means that when it comes to writing a narrative and controlling and defining the narrative, it's the government. Um, Here we have the term capitulations, in which it says obviously it generally means to surrender, right? So if we're talking about colonialism, right, we're obviously talking about a people, a nation of people surrendering, right? Pretty obvious. Okay. But then the term in international law, modern international law, does not simply mean to surrender as it relates to capitulation, more so capitulation regime. Okay, so it goes to say, but in international law, it comes from the Latin word capitula, which means chapters or sections. So it takes on a totally different meaning, right? This is why the average person does not understand law, because when things change, the dominion, the value, the definition of a word change that they're generally used to using, it's like being in a different world. So uh, it goes to say a regime, right? So again, capitulation went on to mean chapters or sections, right? Um, and it goes to say a capitulation is simply a treaty broken down into distinct numbered legal chapters. Okay, so a regime exists when an exception becomes a permanent institution. Under the capitulation regime, foreign consulates were no longer just diplomatic offices. They functioned as fully active domestic courthouses of a foreign nation sitting on Moroccan soil. Fully functioned active domestic courthouses of a nation, i.e., state. So if we talk about a judicial branch, we talk about obviously laws, right? The enforcement of it, right? So obviously the legislative and the executive branch. So when we're talking about the word capitulation regime, this is basically saying, hey, not only is it surrender, it's saying we surrendered, y'all surrendered, and we set up shop as a state. So whenever you see this term capitulation regime, you know the image it brings forth now, because these treaties don't just say, hey, you're exercising extraterritorial jurisdiction in the Empire of Morocco, for us to simply call that out. They don't just say, hey, capitulations regime, even. They don't even just say that. You have to know how to identify it. Hence why people just call it the TOPA, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786, a maritime treaty strictly this whole time, as if it didn't have instructions on what Americans are to do entirely in whatever situation, not just when they on the sea, in whatever situation. What are they to do when they get a dispute with a Moroccan, and what Moroccans are to do in whatever situation? Meaning that even if you're not on the sea, meaning you could be on land. Why? Because that's what the jurisdiction is too. But it doesn't simply say that. Okay, so um, let's get into the example here before we bloom into another section of tonight's agenda. So I yield Wazir if you would like to continue reading. And if anybody has any points of interest at any time, just come off of mute and say point of interest, and I'll yield to you.
Example. protegido abuse, the mass vetting of Moroccan merchants by the late 1870s. Wealthy native Moroccan merchants in ports like Mogador, Essaouira, Essaouira, and Casablanca realized that if they stayed under the Sultan's jurisdiction, they would be heavily taxed and subject to local laws. What happened? Hundreds of these wealthy Moroccans approached European and American consuls, offering to act as commercial agents, interpreters, or brokers for foreign businesses. The consuls handed them official certificates of protection. The result? Overnight, these native Moroccans legally became protegidos. When the Sultan's tax collectors arrived, the merchants simply showed their foreign protection papers. They were suddenly exempt from paying taxes to their own sovereign and could no longer be arrested by Moroccan police. This real-life practice stripped the Moroccan Empire of its wealthiest taxpayers and created a massive administrative crisis, which directly forced the signing of the 1880 Convention of Madrid to try and stop the abuse.
All right. So as we conclude with that point of interest, or that section, that example was just to kind of build us up of the world of what led to many of these treaties. Um, for the most part, I should say. Um, this is actually going on now. One foot in and one foot out.
Point of interest.
Yeah,
Council. Who are they referring to? The American Council or the Moroccan Council?
both. So that's a good point of interest, in which is actually the first point of interest after we get done with the capitulation understanding. Let's see here. You see here where it says consular jurisdiction, and then in parentheses capitulation. So we'll get into that here momentarily. I'm glad you caught on to that. Um, but we'll dive more into it. I can answer it more when we kind of merge into that section here momentarily.
Okay, I yield.
All right. And that's a good pickup. Good eye. So as it relates to the example, again, it's things that are going on in real time today. What is extraterritorial jurisdiction? Well, it's a number of things, a number of elements. So when we have a colonizer coming in, setting up shop, and it comes to the point where it's lawfully seen as capitulation regime, extraterritorial jurisdiction, right? That's what it grew to be. Um, we then see a certain number of things changing. So it says that basically, um, people didn't want to be heavily taxed,
Yeah.
right? They say, well, the Moors got an issue with taxes, and they say, okay, well, we understand that I'm talking about if I'm at this time. That's how I'm talking right now, right? They say, well, if the empire and its government, its entire setup is not the same as what the world is actually changing into at that time. The empire didn't have codification on top of codification how many of the newer states at that time were having. They didn't have a system that mimicked modern international law at that time. These certain codifications led to, better benefits a better world explained, a better lawful standpoint, right? They were taking advantage of pretty much the empire being lazy. Um, so they didn't want to be heavily taxed. So what did it say happened? Hundreds of these wealthy Moroccans approached European, right? So the Empire of Morocco, even at that time, they approached the American government and these other European states, and they said and American consuls offering to act as commercial agents, interpreters, or brokers for foreign businesses. The consuls handed them official certificates of protection. So what did it do? It basically this was the term, if you want to say, quote unquote, Moorish American, because they then start to Moroccans then start to exercise elements of pledging their allegiance to another state, in which if you live in a certain state for so long, that's another indication that you're about to be a national or citizen of that state, right? You start to exercise certain actions that say, hey, you're about to be a citizen or national of this state now, right? So this is what has happened. Um, so capitulations, it's the phrase that I always say: the oppressor oppresses the oppressed, until the oppressed oppresses themselves. So how does that apply in this situation? Well, we got colonized. Once we got colonized, the colonizers set up shop. We said, "Ooh, it looks like the grass is greener over there. Let me practice on denationalizing myself as a Moroccan into American. Let me just do this. Let me just not be Moroccan. Let me be British, because we will be over there in that landmass, or German because we'll be over there in that landmass. Why am I saying that? Because the whole world is in truth the Empire of Morocco. So we'll revisit all of what I just said here momentarily. I'm just trying to, find my way to circle back at it again. Um, so are there any questions about this area before we move on outside of Vashti's question?
Yeah, point of interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in Texas here, they start kindergarten making everybody pledge allegiance to the flag. I don't know if they do that everywhere else, but here, they start that all the way up to 12th grade.
hmm Yeah, I remember doing that as a kid in elementary myself. Not all the way through 12th grade, but yeah, I do remember doing that as a kid. And that was the closest thing I got to pledging allegiance to the United States. And that's another topic, as we discussed naturalization the other night for those of us who were there. Um, so yeah, okay, so let's move on here so we can further understand how to identify ETJ, or extraterritorial jurisdiction. Okay, so here are 6 points, 6 ways to identify ETJ in Moroccan treaties. Okay, so let's read through these points here. I will say after the first point, Wazir, I'll put a pause to you so I can break that down. And then we'll continue reading the other points. All right, so with that, I yield. Wazir, are you able to read for us?
Yes, it's long.
Okay.
One, consular jurisdiction, the capitulations. Clauses explicitly giving the foreign consul exclusive judicial authority to try crimes or civil disputes involving their own citizens, bypassing Moroccan courts entirely.
All right. So this first point, going back to Vashti's point, as it relates to consuls, right? So when we see consuls, this type of verbiage, um, in treaties, this is an indication that um, ETJ, and that's why I'll use from here on out. I'll just say ETJ just to save some energy time, right? Uh, so this is the main identification of ETJ in Moroccan treaties. So this is important because we're talking about the judicial branch, in which, again, entirely, if we're talking about judicial branch, if you're talking about the judge, well, you probably because you broke a law, which means the legislative branch is there, which also means that the executive branch will be there to enforce you to even get you there in the first place in front of the judge. So you have to realize it's kind of like saying the end of a sentence. And just because you didn't hear the end of that beginning part of the sentence doesn't mean that it's understood in the room. If we're talking about this ending part of the judicial branch, it's given that the buildup is there. It's implied. There's a difference between implied task and implied task and express task. Express meaning, or just express period. Express meaning that it has actually been stated in a document, or period. It's been stated verbally, right? It's been expressed. If it's implied, that means more so you have to read between the lines, but it is still there. It is still lawful. It is still in unison. It harmonizes, right? So, as it relates, I have a question for the floor. As it relates to a consul, okay, what's one of the main uh, signatures, if you will, um, of a consul? What's the main functions, if you will, or signatures of a consul? And if you need me to clarify or break that down differently, I will. But that's me asking and yielding to the floor.
I'll take a guess. When I think about that, I think about a lawyer, attorney, something like that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Official representatives of a government.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. The main thing is one of the main things is being in a foreign country. Okay. When we're talking about consul, we're talking about foreign jurisdiction to some degree. Somebody is not referencing the same jurisdiction, right? When it's two different jurisdictions and we're on one of those jurisdiction landmass, most time consul has to be discussed, right?
Point of interest
Yeah,
is okay. I'm kind of getting a brain fog here, but is that like you said, if somebody's in another uh foreign country, so that's when you need to go to the embassy and speak with the consul there if anything has happened or you need help. I you
correct. There are different posts in different type of government buildings all around the world that would represent uh another country, wherever that may be. So whether it's an embassy, right? a consulate, or any type of mission, any type of post that may be set up. These are all different um, pillars, if you will, of ETJ for sure, right? In this standpoint, but these are all pillars that of identifying how another country is exercising some attribute of theirs in a different country, right? So when we're talking about consul, what are we talking about? We talking about officials, a consul being first and foremost in a foreign country itself. Now, well, I won't go there, but again, when we talking about consul, you got a question. Okay, well, obviously it's two states. It's talking about two different jurisdictions. But when we talking about consul, we're talking about some judicial power. Okay, but what entirely? That's not. That doesn't. It doesn't. That's a good chunk of the picture. But just because you got a consul doesn't necessarily mean extraterritorial jurisdiction, saying that your country entirely is within the Empire of Morocco. That's just an indication. Okay, so just because you got a consul somewhere doesn't mean your whole state government itself is there,
Point of
right?
interest, point of interest.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about the Dresdat case, how he went into American court, knowing that they knew that he didn't belong. He should have went to the Moroccan courts. Is that the same thing, or is it something different as far as
yeah, that's the
representation?
same. That's along the same lines.
Okay.
Um, he didn't have a Moroccan government representing him in a Moroccan consul court, in which that's how it should have been. Um, However, this is an element that just given that time frame, it alludes to these exact same points because that type of stuff began to happen then, where people, for one reason or another, began to be tried in front of American courts in from one way or another, mainly this protege system, mainly being the reason people got there, whether intentionally or not. You see, so the 1800s was really something. So, uh, but yeah, that was definitely along the lines of the same thing. Um, However, uh, this specifically, we're talking about extraterritorial jurisdiction being identified, in which, yes, you could say the Dred Scott case is a small element of how we can identify that. Um, but yeah, does that answer your question, Vashti?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, okay, good deal. All right, so we'll go ahead and read through these next few points, and we may pause here and there for a quick point of interest, and we may not, but let's go ahead and finish these off with point number two. I yield to you, Wazir.
Actor, sequitur forum, re provisions that split the court venue based on the nationality of the defendant. Example: a U.S. citizen must be sued or prosecuted inside the U.S. consular court. 3. Mixed commissions, tribunals, text establishing specialized multinational panels or co-judicial benches where foreign officials sit alongside Moroccan authorities, stripping the local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration. 4. The right of protection, the protege system. Articles that extend these foreign legal immunities directly to native Moroccan subjects who work for foreign legations, completely exempting them from Moroccan taxes, military service, and local courts. 5. Most favored nation clauses. Boilerplate text stating a nation receives all the privileges of the most favored nation. Through this, a country like the USA automatically inherited sweeping ETJ rights previously granted by Morocco to Great Britain or France, even if it wasn't written explicitly in the US treaty. Six, inviolability of domicile and vessels. Clauses rendering the homes, businesses, and ships of foreign nationals immune to entry, search, or arrest by Moroccan police without the express consent and presence of that foreign nation's consul.
All right. So let's just revisit some of these points before we continue. Many of these points gel together. All right, go hand in hand. Um, it may seem like the same point to some of us, but let's just break this down. So we talked about the consuls, right? Setting up shop. You having the judicial branch was also um indicates you having the other two branches. Okay. But that doesn't mean your whole country is there. We obviously know we're talking about a full government, right? But let's look at these other elements of what makes ETJ. Okay. It says actor secretor form re. It says these are provisions that split court venue based on the nationality of the defendant. Example, United States court citizen be sued or prosecuted inside U.S. consular court. So just like having a consul, right, which would indicate a lot of things that how we just read in this point two, is kind of common sense. Um, what it's saying here is that in a particular treaty, if you not only see a consul, but it goes to say the nationalities should go in each respective consular court. Okay, so it's pretty much just saying the same thing, just a little bit more color to it, right? Another sentence to it. Pretty much saying the same thing as point number one. Let's continue reading these next elements though. It says mixed commissions slash tribunals. Text text establishing specialized multinational panels or co-judicial benches where foreign officials sit alongside Moroccan authorities. Excuse me. Stripping the local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration. Stripping the local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration. Stripping. Okay, so what's starting to happen here? This is kind of like when the ego starts to form into the spirit, that section of the ego, or if you some people call it the spirit itself, the ego, or if you want to say the ego into the soul. This stripping of local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration. It says the number of things, not just that, because obviously laws have been broken. Things have been done for people to be get in front of the judge, right? For the to be involved with the judicial branch now, right? So again, we're talking about understanding the jurisprudence of this one sentence. Again, if we talked about consul, we're not just talking about the judicial branch. Maybe in that sentence, yeah. But what are you uh what are you supposed to realize that it's not just a judicial branch? It's an entire government. Okay, so how is this entire government setting up shop? Are they on a mission there?
Mm-hmm.
Are they visiting? Are they all on a visa? Or are they all permanently there, lawfully, right? So, um, what again? This is why we went into the taxes, right? Moors didn't want to pay taxes. That was the element, right? They had to go through certain, again, the Empire of Morocco wasn't codified enough to say um, uh, we have specified verbiage for how things should go as it relates to X, Y, Z. They didn't have that for many things. That's what they had to grow to be. Um, However, on the other hand, European states had that, in which my whole point of saying that, or bringing that up again, is because when you go to court and the judge, there's no law to base things off of. The judicial branch or judge at that point in time creates a law, so to speak, based on the adjudication of that case, res judicata. So these customary norms, this res judicata, then becomes general norms and law eventually, most times, because it grew to be solidified a practice. So one thing led to another, obviously. Okay, so the when we talk about the stripping of local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration, we're not just talking about just judicial. We're talking about all three branches of government. We're talking about everything. So you got to read between the lines. We're not just talking about judicial. It, we're talking about mixed tribunals at this time. So I'm trying to give everybody a full picture before we continue. Because again, one of the biggest indications is consul. Another big indication is realizing the time frame of these treaties. The 1800s, and even in the 1700s, but the 1800s especially, being a time where um, countries were really wanting to be like the next European state because the most favored nation clause was going crazy. Said, okay, this European state is in Morocco and they got this set up. We want it like this. Oh, we want it like this. We want then you get a country that's a little bit different, a little bit different. So they amp it up a little bit. It's different.
Point,
It all gets on the most favored nation uh clause all the way through.
point of interest, Prime, real quick. Islam,
Yeah,
Grand
it's
Wazir, and I appreciate you supporting me on this class. Let me clarify something on that. Um, the only one who didn't have the most favored nation status was the United States. Everyone else did. Remember, the United States was a brand new nation, the latest formed country, whereas all these other European states, which I'm sure were ran by Moors, but that's another story. They had the most favored nation clause. And so what brought it back together for all of them to have the most favored nation clause as one amongst all the Europeans is the Act of Algeciras, which is the triple principles, because the triple principles is in like manner, it's a contract. So just as well as the sovereignty and independence of His Majesty the Sultan, integrity of his domains, and economic liberty without any inequality, you see, that's what set up or established the most favored nation clause to go across the board for all Europeans. So all of them have the right, the treaty right to have economic liberty without any inequality. So they're all equal, whereas previous to, the United States was not necessarily on equal footing with the other Europeans. Just for clarity on that point, I yield, Prime.
I didn't know that. Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Is
definitely that's the case. Remember, in these contracts, it's all in like manner. So the triple principles is not limited to the Sultan and the empire. The economic liberty without any inequality also goes to the Europeans. Also, you'll see an act of Algeciras where, I think it's chapter 6, where it deals with the public services and the public works. Um, as it relates to the public works, if there was a contract to build a bridge, you must the Moors must give equal opportunity to all nationalities to submit a bid as the contractors to build the bridge. You guys understand what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah,
you can't right you can't what's the word um what's the word uh um we use that word all the time in the U.S.
you can't
jurisdiction dealing with
exclude
prejudice. You
anybody. You
can't be
can't
prejudiced
yeah,
towards. You
right.
can't be prejudiced to any specific nationality. You have to allow for equal opportunity amongst them all. Again, economic liberty without any inequality. Just for further clarity, I yield.
is and that's another good point of interest. You know, you know, again, if we put the necessary pieces that many of us already know and bring them to the forefront, you'll realize that you put two and two together, you would have already known this and what I'm about to say. You know, the USA, the 13 colonies at that time, not even being this entire landmass at the time when they signed the treaty. And not only that, but when we read many books about their state of their state um, for a long time, they really struggled. So given that the USA having the MFN, the most favored nation clause, is really not realistic. It's not realistic for them to be on the same footing as states who've been um, doing reigning where they're at for a long time. It's just not realistic. To come to even to those terms will be more than what they even had at that time. So we just to take some of those elements in consideration to the Sultan's point, to put them on the same footing with it's not like the internet is around and today's time is a little different, right? It's a little different. But international law did not see that through, right? So as it relates to the USA, to the Sultan's point, they did not have the MFN, the most favored nation clause. Um, so that's point number three, right? So that which is a pretty big point. It's kind of like where would you say the next generation cuts off at, right? For the next generation in your lifetime. That number three would be that cutoff point that says, okay, this is a big difference maker right here. As it relates to the first 3 points, the console up to point number three, that's 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 uh that's good enough to identify. Um, some people can't identify just having a console and say, hey, I see extraterritorial jurisdiction in this. Me, I can't personally now, especially as it relates to the Empire of Morocco. Um, but these are two following elements that you can use and say, okay, if these other two elements are there, then this will help me train to see element number one, right? You can all see them as the same element, do what you will to understand it. But let's go on to the fourth one, the right of protection, the protege system. Okay, so we went into it's kind of like mitosis what we're looking at here. It's growing and growing into something else. Okay, so splitting. Remember how I said stripping the local sovereign of exclusive judicial administration. Stripping. You gotta share, right? So it goes to say, okay, well, since we're sharing here, um, we gotta clarify uh, uh more about who is governing what. So it says articles that extend these foreign legal immunities directly to the native Moroccan subjects who work for foreign legation, completely exempting them from Moroccan taxes, military service, and local courts. So you gotta, this stuff is going on right now. There are Moors, there are people calling themselves Moorish Americans, excuse me, in which that, as we read before, we began to see mitosis happen stage by stage. Little elements here and there, whether it was worth going to court or not, right? They began to split in two, split the, it began to its attribute, it began to make its own attributes, right? An entity in itself, right? This protege system began to finalize or define or solidify what was being split. Okay, so now we have solidified, not people just trying to do things because hey, I'm a business person. If you do this for me, you can kind of, you know, you kind of wing it and do some things. I just run over to you, you know. I'm not a citizen, American citizen, I'm yet, but or whatever. But I'll just run over to you because you're American. You can give me protections, right? You can, because we're working, we're doing business or something together. So I'm gonna just run to you whenever I feel in danger. That's not the lawful thing to do. I'm just run to you because I know the empire really not codified like that. I know y'all are. I know y'all not about to double check. I know y'all want me to do this. So let me just do this. Okay, cool. Okay, so we're about to do this. Oh, well, the empire comes across a problem. There's a problem, there's a pen. Unfortunately, the judicial branch got to decide it because where's the codification? So that was it became the customary norm. And as we see, it still is today in a sense. One foot in, one foot out. So again, this the point number four began to solidify everything. Okay. Then number five says the most favored nation clause. It says boilerplate text stating a nation receives all the privileges of the most favored nation. Through this, a country like the USA automatically inherits sweeping ETJ. Now, this is not the case necessarily, given the fact that, but keep in mind that AI is, you got, even when you read articles online, you got to read in between the lines, in between the lines. You gotta really take things with a grain of, if a Moor doesn't know, nobody knows. And that's only because whoever thought they knew is sharing some information that the Moor is reading and now has to correct. That's what's going on here. So this is again just a AI study guide, that, like always, we have to uh, correct, right? And also to the Sultan's point, being that the USA did not deal with the most favored nation clause in the same manner everybody else did at that time. So as it relates to the ETJ, right, extraterritorial jurisdiction, um, the just like when the United States told France, hey, We see the Treaty of Fez in 1912. We see that you're the protectorate of the Empire of Morocco, but we're going to keep moving like we didn't just see that. We're going to keep governing these Moors and these subjects here, okay? And we'll put up a fight with you. You should have talked to us before the treaty. That's what they were saying, right? So, um, due to customary norms, due and it's not even just that. Due to customary norm being a big reason, but we got to understand here, the United Nations, which uh, a great deal of it has been made to decolonize, not explicitly, but a big part of it, right? Is made up of who? Many of which are colonizers in reference to the countries, right? Um, you you don't expect colonizers just follow the law all of a sudden when decolonization has been something that's lawfully not been supported for a very long time now. You just don't you still don't expect them to just drop everything and follow the law, right? Well, the United States during this time, even though they weren't on the MFN, the most favored nation clause, they didn't have the same type of harmonious system. They had to fight their way through it, and that's pretty much what they did. Um, just like how I use that France analogy. They said, France, look, one way or another, we gonna find it. We just so happen to get a lawful favor this time. Other times, man, when it comes to the courts, it was more so outside of the courts. We handled it other ways, if you get my gist, right? Again, lack of codification, lack of the Empire of Morocco being hip to modern administrative systems. People come in and manipulate you until you want to do something, right? So, um, I actually posted a post today on social media. It was a picture, and it said, "Sovereignty without administrative uh, sovereignty without administrative efficiency." I think it was. I got it right here. It says sovereignty without administrative execution is just philosophy. Kind of like saying faith without works is dead, right? So again, I'm bringing that all up to say that the most favored nation clause as it relates to the U.S. Um, it looked a little different. They had to what they call grit, right? They had to grit it out more than everybody else, a little bit more, or colonize more, a little bit differently, I should say, if you will. But this 6 point here, and then we'll continue on. It says inviolability of domicile and vessels. Clauses rendering homes, businesses, and ships of foreign nationals immune to entry, search, or arrest by Moroccan police without express consent and presence of a foreign nation's consul. So again, further solidifying um, uh, everything that's been going on here. You know, when it comes to searching my business, right? And let's just say, hey, I'm a Moroccan national in the 1800s, and I got a business, and I'm over here running to let's just say France for protection because we're over here in what's commonly known as France, and I keep running to them every time. I literally got to run to the French official down the street or something, right? He moved down the street from me just so we can get this thing going, and now um, we got caught up things are changing over in the Empire of Morocco's jurisdiction. They came out with another declaration, whatever the case may be. One thing led to another. Obviously, it led to another treaty being made in 1880. I'm sure there was minute things done before that. You wouldn't go straight to surgery on your first try, right? But one thing obviously led to another. Um, these things caused exactly what we see today. However, it's an issue. Um, Dual citizenship, uh, things that uh, any government for this matter, but especially the United States, has as what I call open-ended traps that allow people to um, exercise ways to go back and forth. You know, the unwillingness to say anything about it in a certain light, especially, is to encourage it for us to not correct um, uh, the fact that the de jure sultan is Abdul Al-Kabir, and for us to not do that is to allow the world to think that there's another there's another person going around to be the sultan who going around the Ampac 2.0. We have to speak on these things. You have to. So what I'm saying here is that by not speaking on this, we see it back then being exercised. That's why the 1880 Treaty of Madrid was established, right? The protege system was being taken advantage of. Okay, well, when the Empire Morocco government is put in a coma because it's non-existent, the state is, but the government is not, and the United States of America reigns rampant. What would you expect? It's open-ended traps everywhere. They don't want to speak up on certain things on what is and what is not. They will not promote decolonization in that manner, especially when they're not forced to. Right. So these are just some elements in which extraterritorial jurisdiction. This is what actually makes up that. Right. We read capitulations. We say, hey, we know this word is not ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is, but it's two different words. How? How do we go from this word to this word? Oh, and then we got capitulation regime. Okay, how? If capitulation means surrender, how does it mean sections or chapter in law? How do we get there? Right? You gotta this is why I was building up the way I did, right? Especially at the beginning. So these are the elements, the six elements in which make up extraterritorial jurisdiction. Right. So now we know the elements. Okay. So let's continue on here. So we won't go through each and every one of these points, but I want you all to understand the gist here. Um, we'll start off with the TOPAF, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, right? The TOPAF of 1786 specifically. It says how to pinpoint these 6 points. Excuse me, let me drink this water right quick. Okay. How to pinpoint these 6 points in the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1786. Okay, so now we're going to not only this treaty, but we'll visit the Treaty of Madrid, 1880, the Act of Algeciras, 1906, right? So it goes to say, um, Now I'll just read this for uh, again. We won't read each and every one of these points. And if anybody would like this study guide, feel free to put your email in the chat. Um, it yeah, put your email in the chat, and I'll be sure to screenshot the emails and send this over, so therefore you can read this in full yourself. But we won't be going over each and every one of these. It's about an 8-page document or so. Um, but again, we'll go over enough to understand the gist here. Okay. So the six keys. The first being consular jurisdiction. It says, where is it? Now, again, this is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship 1786, which is pretty much the same thing for 1836. Okay, literally the same exact articles apply in this case. So it says where it is. Article 20, simply how. Look for the language regarding civil disputes. Okay. If any citizen, and this is the quote, if any citizen of the United States or any person under their protection shall have any disputes with each other, the consul shall decide between the parties. So here we go with the consul. Identify the consul, right? It says it explicitly bypassed the Moroccan court machinery for inter-citizen matters. Okay, so this is indicating the fact that hey, a government, if they have a judge here, right, along with this consul, something is up. Something is up. Something is going on. If you got a consul, that would not mimic the entirety of the judicial branch. That would not be the entirety of the judicial branch. But if you start to exercise elements of a judicial branch in its entirety, along with the consul part, that something is up, right? It's a little bit bigger than just having a consul somewhere, right? So, you start to talk about how your citizens gonna be adjudicated for over there. You start to say, whoa, whoa, hold on, what's going on? Yeah, I set up shop, right? So, um, number two, it says actor sequitur form rate or bifurcated trials. Okay, where is this in Article 21 of the TOPOF, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship? It says simply how. This article addresses cross-national crimes. Example, if a U.S. citizen kills or wounds a Moor, a Moroccan, or vice versa, the text requires that, quote, equal justice, equal justice shall be rendered, the consul assisting at the trial. Okay, so it's not just the consul. Okay, so it is more. It's kind of like saying in the Bible, Adam and Eve, they were the first ones, and then you find out there was other people there. And you say, hold on, what's going on? Right? So you got to read between the lines here. Uh, so the third point, mixed commissions, tribunals. Where is it? Article 24. How? The text states that if differences or controversies arise over interpreting the treaty articles, peace must be maintained while the arrangement, quote unquote, is negotiated. While it does not name a permanent tribunal yet, it establishes a treaty framework that required foreign agents and Moroccan officials to sit together to resolve legal disputes instead of Morocco making unilateral rulings. So, if this is the Empire of Morocco, right, you would have to abide by the laws of that country, anybody in it. it still applies for one. But again, when there's people infiltrating the Empire of Morocco, and we're talking about having the Arabic sultans at the time, right? Infiltrated the Empire of Morocco, the quote unquote Berbers, which is a derogatory term, the original Moors, i.e., us. Um, we have that element. So being infiltrated on the other side, we're being colonized. So we're being colonized on both sides. Okay, so not only are you being colonized on both sides, you have an empire government that's not dealing with codification administratively. They're not too concerned about progress in the administrative aspect of mimicking Europeans. That wasn't the goal. That wasn't the custom for all these centuries. They got us point for point for point. It's kind of like if you was able to keep the same basketball team and win champion after championship and championship, win, and it would go on for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years if we could. You probably would never change until it's just that, till it's time. And that's pretty much what happened, right? Um, so these tribunals, again, this part number three even had to break it down itself. It says, while it does not name a permanent tribunal yet, it establishes a treaty framework that required foreign agents and Moroccan officials to sit together, etc. So it basically said that, hey, this process, it was a process. You got to catch it, right? You got to catch it. You got to know that in between the number one and two is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, etc. After 1.5, it starts to tilt in the other direction. You got to know where it starts to tilt in. That matters. So this is what they catching on here. All each and every intricate element. Um, because again, the treaties are not going to say, hey, this is where you can see colonialism. This is exactly why everybody used to say, and still says to this day, the TOPAS, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, is just a maritime treaty, as if it doesn't establish the fact that U.S., the United States of America, can exercise extraterritorial jurisdiction in the Empire of Morocco. It's not clearly seen. So let's just go on here with this example here. In number four, it says the right of protection, the protege system. Okay. Where is it found? In Articles 20 and 23. How? Article 20 openly protects not just citizens, not just citizens, but any quote, but quote, any persons under their protection. Any persons, 14th Amendment, under their protection, right? And I'm talking about 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Um, so it says Article 23 goes further, stating that if a U.S. citizen enters a debt, the consul is not responsible unless he gave explicit security. This established a protected envelope around the consulate staff, effectively exempting foreign affiliated Moroccans from the local sovereign's reach. Okay, so you know this 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 protege system right? Again, same thing as today. It's even more that once were officials that want to run and get protections from the colonizers using Moroccan documents, still in real time. Now you see why the protege system, why this these Negro activities still reign. See the problem? That's neo-colonialism in itself. It's the problem is the Moors in itself. That's why colonialism is still here. Who took
Point of
advantage of the
inquiry,
protege
Prime.
system?
Let me jump
Yeah,
in real quick,
yeah.
Prime, if you don't mind. So, like, well, first of all, they weren't necessarily government officials who went off to become proteges. Um, Perhaps they were educated people and stuff, but not necessarily government officials. But as you see, though, to your point, dealing with um, present times, what did Malcolm call the Negro who was caring for the master in the master's household? And what did he call the Negroes that was outside picking cotton? Anyone?
House nigga, field nigga.
Yeah.
No, don't use that. Use the other word, bro. Negro
House Negro,
and field Negro.
field Negro.
Proteges and Moorish proteges and Moorish subjects.
Mm-hmm.
The Moorish proteges are the house
House
Negroes,
Negro.
and the Moorish subjects are the field
Field.
Negroes. But they are the same. They hold the same similar status. One is a little higher than the other, right? So Obama, Jermaine, these are house Negroes. You know, those who work with or for the government, or corporations, right? And then you have your everyday black people, uh, who are uh, uh, locked into the struggle. They're in the struggle. They're dealing with the everyday life problems. Um, that would be like the fake Sultan Kendon. He's a field Negro. He's locked in with everyday. So therefore you become drug dealers. Uh, Mansour, you become uh, house intruders. These are the Moorish subjects, the field Negro. Then you have your proteges, which is the house Negroes. But both of those people, what did they do? They they had forsaken the empire, right? Uh, and that's what we see today, right? With Impact 2.0, and anyone who you may inform of the empire, they forsaken, uh, for many different reasons, depending on who you're talking about, varying different degrees of the same tomfoolery exercised by our people as to why uh, we have had a hard time in this past century to rise up and overcome the oppression and suppression, which is the uh, manifestations of what? Colonialism. We see it in varying stages. You know, like how they say, same crap, different toilet. That's Impact 2.0, Hooper Temp, Groundhog Day, October 1st, 2025. Same crap, different toilet. In other words, as I keep saying, we're locked into a program of self destruction. Uh, remember that song? back in the days, the early 90s. Self-destruction. There was a song called Self-Destruction. Um, so we've been self-destructing for quite some time now. And regardless on how we may have felt about the empire or the sultan uh, being a monarch or not, or an Arab or not, it was incumbent upon us to take care of business in such a way that it would preserve the sovereignty of the empire. But instead, we worked against the empire. Remember who helped the French troops in fighting the empire? The Moors, front line. Well, who helps the U.S. in fighting the brothers in the East? The Moors, front line. And then in their older age, you'll see it. If you see him walking to the store or walking down the street, wherever, you see an old vet, old black vet, rocking his Vietnam hat. I'm a veteran. I got the Purple Heart. Proud. The red, white, and blue banner flying all over his house. The celebration of the 4th of July by those who have been uh, subjugated, oppressed, naturalized, bamboozled, hoodwinked, led astray, colonized, enslaved, really prisoners of war, prisoners on your own homeland, exiled on your own homeland, conscious of the fact you might not have true knowledge of self regarding your nationality and your country, but you're absolutely conscious of the fact that these foreign Americans are your enemy. Even if the narrative may not necessarily be absolute true, you know that these people enslaved you. There's something to you in the past that today you can't even get it together because of the trauma. So you know that consciously. I can't really be too upset with the average black person for not choosing the entire submission because that's not something that you knew consciously. That's part of the knowledge of self, the spectrum of your knowledge of self. If you had knowledge of self, you wouldn't know about you being Moroccan and choosing the entire submission. But that was all part of the design. You don't need to know who you are. We'll make you believe that you're African. Okay, so let's run with that narrative. You're an African guy that was brought over here as slaves to pick cotton for them. So you're conscious of that. Even though that narrative is false, you're conscious of that egregious activity that you uh, had to deal with in the earlier stages of the United States. Yet you celebrate 4th of July with pride. You sing the anthem in these games, halftime shows, or the start of the NBA finals, whatever. You sing the Star Spangled Banner with pride. Whitney Houston, with that beautiful voice, blew the roof off the building with that beautiful voice and all that energy and passion. Singing what? Your enemy's anthem. What the hell is wrong with our people, man? It's called integration. You got a couple dollars. You were assimilated into American society on the low level, not on the high level, on the low level. And that's good enough. Good enough to cause you to run from your people, which then leads to a lack of unity. Because previous to, during the segregation times, it was unity. Well, hell, you didn't have a choice. Because you couldn't go to their establishments. You couldn't even drink from their water fountains. So you thought proper to say, okay, well, we'll build our own restaurants. We'll build our own fountains and whatever else, such as Black Wall Street. Integration comes being integrated into a burning fire. We just dispersed. And don't disregard the drug operation. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI. That's how they neutralized the Panthers. And then George Bush with his Iran-Contra mission, using Freeway Ricky Ross as a supplier in the West Coast to generate finance for the U.S. government to supply who? With weapons. The Nicaraguans. To go against who? Does anyone recall? Fast forward till today, they're still beefing. Who was the United States helping Nicaragua against under Bush as a CIA president? Iran. Operation Iran-Contra or Iran-Contra. That's why I keep telling y'all, with any president, it's the same playbook, different presidents. So to get caught up in a specific name is nonsensical. It's egregious, stupid. It's micro thinking versus macro thinking. It's 1D thinking versus 3D, or better yet, 5D thinking. George Bush says, Noriega is a drug dealer and he's a dictator, so we're going to go in there and indict him and pull him out of there. Fast forward 20 years or so later, Trump says Maduro is a drug dealer and a dictator, so we're going to go in there and indict him and pull him out of his own country. Extraterritoriality. So everyone gets in an uproar about Trump, but they forget about Bush. You see what I'm saying? It's the same playbook. Stop getting caught up with the head of state and focus on the government itself. I went off subject a little bit, but not really, because it still talks about the capitulations of our people, the capitulations or the surrender or the acquiescence of our people to accept the fact that the Moroccan nationality is obsolete and without effect, because we, instead of promoting or celebrating your own true divine national identity, you choose instead to accept nicknames given to you by your mother, your stepmother, and your stepdaddy, the American government and their president. So they say you're a Negro, black, and a colored, and then they put what Malik said about the leaders that's placed before us. Does anyone recall who are the leaders that Malik Shabazz spoke on, that they place in front of us as leaders, whereas the white community doesn't have that problem? Does anyone recall that interview?
Athletes and celebrities.
Thank you very much. Today you have Kevin Hart, Jay-Z with a wig on, acting like he's some Black Panther in all black. Sir, you're not that guy. What are we doing here? See, I don't like or trust light-skinned Negroes with the name Jay. Jay-Z, J-Bay, same shit, different toilet. Excuse my language. The same type of people. Master manipulator. Just yesterday you said, oh, well, battling is not good for the culture. And then you go and you do the exact opposite. Master manipulator. One moment you say, the U.S. has no jurisdiction over us. You must choose the entire submission. The key word is entire. You can't go back to them. And then he turns around and says, I'm going to call the police on y'all. I'm going to get the U.S. government, the U.S. courts involved in this dispute, this Moroccan dispute. You see the same personality here, Illuminati type of personality, contract signing, oath taking type of personality, shark mindset. I'm a shark. Well, Jay-Z is a shark. Then he shark Dame Dash. But then didn't Jermaine try to shark Abdul Al-Kabir? Our people, self, the man in the mirror, it's the real fight. It's the real battle. Don't look at no Trump. Don't look at no Bush. Look at Obama. Look at Barry Soetoro. Codified the entire speech. Oh, it's the Muslims who lit the torch. No, brother, say it with your chest or shut the hell up. It's the Moors who lit the Olympic torch. It's the Moors who built civilization. Don't code it as a religion to then have Black people shy away from the nationality because they think the nationality is a religion. You see the foolishness, you see the fork tonguing to further bamboozle you, hoodwink you, and lead you astray. Muslim and Moor, although it can be placed in the same sentence, is not to say that Moorish means religion. It just so happens that the Moors were under Islam, whereas the Christians, the Europeans, were under Christianity. But who ran the Roman Holy Empire, or the Holy Roman Empire? Who ran that? Who ran the Holy Roman Empire?
The Moors.
The Moors. Is that not a Christian demonstration? Is that not a Christian presentation? Okay, I'll answer that myself. Yes, it is. Which means then what? We're all that in a bag of chips, aren't we? We are everything. We are everything. So now let me touch on something that the Prime pointed out. And I want to give thanks to the Prime for being a real Prime, speaking for the empire, speaking for the government. We don't see Cicero up here teaching classes and speaking for the government. We don't see no judge. That's bad practice for some judge to be, so-called judge, to be speaking on behalf of the state. No. Teach your son Jr., Dre, how to teach classes. Teach your other son, Kendon, how to teach classes. They are the ones who should be speaking for the empire. Not you, sir. No, I'll take care of it. Y'all be quiet. And everyone is like, okay, I'll be quiet and you take care of it. Thank you, Prime. For being what a prime minister should be, son Jr., Dre, could learn a thing or two from you. And he should have already learned something from you because he damn sure don't know nothing. He comes from Wyoming. He's a white Black dude. He doesn't really know nothing about Moorish history. Whereas our illustrious prime minister does. He comes from that cloth. Son Jr. does not. But let me clarify something, and it's important. It's very important. And I don't want to, I don't want to, it's not my intentions to step on the Prime's toe. But I believe there's a misconcept being presented here, and I have to clarify, or at least clean it up, or at least attempt to. The empire has had treaty relations since BC. Or at the very least, the 300s. The Treaty of Granada is a Moorish Empire treaty because Granada is a kingdom that was part of the greater empire. Okay? Fast forward to more modern times, the Act of Algeciras, another treaty, multilateral treaty. Many bilateral treaties, many multilateral treaties. What is a treaty? Is that a law, an international law? Yes or no? Uh,
I say
wake up, Morris. Yes.
yes. Yes.
Thank you.
It is
Gratitude.
it is a
Gratitude.
law.
Gratitude.
It's
Gratitude.
international law. It's supreme laws of the land.
It's a law. So it's very difficult for me to uh, accept the idea that the empire did not have internal laws, codified laws, but it had external laws. We had to have internal laws. The Moors are the law makers. Anything modern dealing with law comes from the ancient. The more ancient laws, written laws, are the negative confessions of my eye. Yes or no, Morris?
Yep.
It's law.
Right?
Yep.
Yes.
Those are laws, spiritual laws based on spiritual divine um, concepts. But it evolved over time. We haven't, I don't know, I couldn't point to any um, Moroccan law or legislative act coming from the empire, no doubt. But I cannot, well, if the Europeans, and when you say Europeans, let's be specific. If the the pale Europeans have laws, where did they get it from? If they have written laws, where the hell did they get it from? Because there is absolutely nothing on planet Earth that they know that they develop themselves. The Moors are the master teachers on planet Earth, period. Which means that if the Europeans have written laws, they must have learned it from who? Moors? I'm listening.
Moors.
One more.
So then, therefore, we
Without a
must
doubt.
have had written, which means then we must have had written laws. You can't run a whole empire without any type of codified laws. I cannot. I'm not sure where you draw that conclusion, Prime, and if you can give further clarity with reference points, and that would be wonderful. Though I'll still question it. Like how is that possible? How is it that we did not have no laws, no written laws? You're looking at anarchy. You're looking at an uncivilized. It's not an organized dual society if you don't have law. Keeping in mind that laws are reactive. Trust and believe the Moors did something or would do something, whereas now the Moxon has to come in and enact some sort of law to deal with that matter going forward. Such as, like, for example, the where does the term ruffian come from, Moors? Let me see if y'all remember. Ruffians. Where does the word ruffian come from?
Ruffians, the Riffians.
The Riffians, who are
Riffian
they?
Moors.
Yeah,
The
man,
Moors,
yeah, man.
Riffian Moors.
The pirates. The pirates of the Caribbean. And the regencies, such as what? Tunis, Algiers, etc. So they out here terrorizing the white man. From that came the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. That's an external international law. So if you have an external international law, then you must have had an internal law first to deal with that matter and then establish an external law second to deal with it internationally, because at the end of the day, it is based in foreign relations. The Americans were foreigners, or not were, but are they till today, they still are foreigners to the land. Whereas we are the indigenous peoples of the land. So consequently, we got to have laws. But under customs and usage, what happened? Negro, black, color. And like I was saying, my bad. When I was saying about El Malik and Lena Horne and the entertainers. Yeah, that's where you get your James Brown. Say it loud. Say it loud, Morris. What are you? Black and you proud?
Black and proud.
Right? They prop all these celebrities and entertainers before us. The Camel J, Jay-Z, Jermaine's favorite artist. I'm Nas. I'm Tupac. I don't do Epstein Island Illuminati J. That's not to say he ain't got bars, but I don't do the light skinned J. And from here on down, I don't do no light skinned J's. I'm sorry, I'm prejudiced now to my own, and I should be, and you all should be as well. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. So just because some Negro get on TV to say that you're black and proud doesn't mean that you should go along with it, but we did. So now that became what? Customs and usage, whereas now you are Negro, black, colored, African American, all of which means I'm American.
They use these artists to pump that crap in our brain.
Not just artists.
Yeah, not just artists. But,
Specifically artists, because you're talking about brainwashing, right? Programming
right,
you.
right.
But then you still have your Negro leader guys.
Preachers
and stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But no political power.
Right.
The only semblance of a political power that we had is Barry Soetoro, aka Obama. And from his administration comes what? Men can go in young girls' bathrooms while your daughter is in there using the bathroom. A man can walk in there under the guise of, "Oh, I'm a girl." That's what he did. That's what he did for you, black man. Right. Some of us love him. Some of us in black fezzes love him. Which that was a signal right there. Oh boy. Gotta watch for this light-skinned dude.
He's part of that LGBTQ crap.
Because Michelle is really Michael.
I was trying not to throw that alphabet out there. But yeah, that alphabetical, all that. Nothing was done that was specific. It was specific for that class of people, but nothing was done specific for the black man.
Right.
Other than some codified speech that was nonsensical. It was like, you might as well keep it to yourself, sir. You ain't do nothing with that.
Right.
What? Black people don't know what you're talking about. Say it in such a way, say it with your chest in such a way where the average black man could think to himself like, man, you didn't specify the empire. It was Morocco. You didn't say the Empire of Morocco. You said it was Morocco that recognized our country. My country is what he said. My country. Oh, it's your country. But at the same time, he knows that his country is Morocco. This is what it is with our people. Snake oil salesman, just like Jermaine, with a crooked smile, because it's crooked because you have ill intentions behind that smile. So
they try to use, and they try to use that term Morocco in a sense that, you know, they always try to refer to the kingdom.
That's what I'm saying, brother. So that's what I'm saying. Right. So when the average black man is listening to that nonsensical tomfoolery of a speech that he loves to highlight in his AMPAC study sessions, it used to make me sick when I would see that. I'm like, ugh, why you keep pointing that out? When the average black man sees that, he's thinking, what? The kingdom of
Kingdom.
Morocco. That's why I was specific in saying why you ain't say the empire. It was the Empire of Morocco. That's what they all do. Hillary did it. All of them do it. They use the term Morocco. Now we know that Morocco means the empire, but in modern times, the mindset of the people under customs and uses they are accustomed to and used to the term Morocco representing the kingdom.
Right.
So it's not correct. Morocco represents the empire. But it went into a shallow grave because of people like Jermaine and Jay-Z, all the J's. I'm being facetious with that, no doubt, because it's not about light skin or dark skin. All kinfolk just ain't kinfolk, period. And you can tell based on their character. That's why it cares nothing about age. I don't care nothing about gender. You can put 100 women in front of me to say that I did something wrong, like he tried to do with 175 as an example. I could care less. Truth and lies don't have a gender or age. You can put 1,000,000 of them up there. It's still a goddamn lie, excuse my language. Period. It's still defamation. It's still slander because it's not true. Truth, lies don't have a gender or an age. That's why I don't care about a gender or age. Oh, she's a matriarch and she's an elder. Yeah, well, Maxine Waters is also a matriarch and an elder, and she is on the record for selling us out to the Cherokee Indians. Oh, so I'm supposed to just respect her on GP just because she's a matriarch and an elder?
Right.
No. Character is what the Moors got to start to look at. People's character. And oftentimes the character will switch up on you. Those be the ones that you got to be careful with. Those are the master manipulators. The character will switch up on you, but they got a flawed character. So it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female. It doesn't matter if you're older or you're young. It doesn't matter if you're fat or you're skinny. It doesn't matter if you're white or if you're black. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. The character is what matters. Who helped Django get Broomhilda free? Was it
German,
Stephen?
German.
It wasn't Stephen, though, was it?
No, the doctor.
But doesn't Stephen look like him and her? You see, gender, nationality, color, age doesn't matter. Character. So therefore, in that example, we see that the German white guy had a more upstanding character than the black dude, Stephen. But you would say, oh, we got to respect and honor and love our people. Yeah, but what about the character, though? We're just going to disregard the character of our people? We're going to disregard the lack of accountability on the part of our people? I'll say it again, and I'll never stop saying it. The only reason why we have become colonized and remain colonized is because of the likes of Jermaine Diaz Spencer, Sean Carter, Jay-Z, and the list goes on. Okay, so I'm not being prejudiced. So let me say, what's his name? He's from Augusta. Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. James Brown. Okay, he's a dark-skinned brother. James Brown. So it's not about complexion. I'm being facetious when I say that. Though it's definitely on point what I'm saying, but I'm being facetious about that. I'm not necessarily trying to be prejudiced. Because I've met a lot of light-skinned people that are cool. It ain't got nothing to do with light skin or dark skin. It doesn't matter. You're a Moor. It's a Moor across the board. It's not to be fully just trusted on GP just because, oh, he's a Moor and he's wearing a fez. Oh, he's wearing a black fez. That's even better. He's a judge. I'm just gonna trust him. Man, you playing with yourself, you do that. I know that by experience because I automatically trusted, and look at what it turned out to be. Never again. I only learned a lesson once. And the Moors should only learn their lessons once, so as to not keep repeating it again. It was an absolute mistake, though in divine order, because nonetheless, without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I needed certain keys that he gets credit for providing me with. And that's where his job ends. I don't need you any further from that. I'm not Amir. I'm not the one to say, who's going to write the documents? Our people are to be studied and looked at as to the reason why we cannot overcome. It's our people. Miss me with the white man. Miss me with any other nationality. I don't want to hear nothing about no blue-eyed devil. I want to talk about the nappy-head devil. He's the one. The Holy Roman Empire were Moors. The first 8 presidents of this so-called United States, which under what is it called? Continental Congress, were Moors. John Hanson, etc. Yes or no? Yes or no, Moors? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you
Uh-huh.
are correct.
Uh-huh. Why? Why do we need some Continental Congress when we already got the empire? Has anyone ever questioned or wondered that? The Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany in 1905, a Moor. All those governments were Moorish. These governments weren't started by no Europeans. The French Republic didn't start with no European. Look at all the architecture in that land or in that territory. Who are who is composed of the so-called black nobility? Huh? Moors. Christian Moors. You have your Christian Moors, you have your Islam Moors, and you have your Jew Moors. And we as a people predate all that. We predate Christianity. You find the entire story on the hieroglyphs and the pyramids in Egypt. The whole Noah's Ark. The Ten Commandments comes from the negative confessions of Ma'at. Come on, man. 325 AD, the Nicene Conference, or whatever you call it, council. When did Prophet Muhammad appear on the scene, Moors, in Islam? Anyone cares to share? When did Prophet Muhammad in Islam come on the scene like that? Okay, let me ask it this way. Was it in the BC or AD time frame? I'm listening.
To be honest, I don't know, but I could take a guess. It would have to be BC.
Okay, that's your guess. Appreciate the guess. Anyone else want to take a guess? When did Jesus and Christianity and Islam and Prophet Muhammad, it's interesting that every religion has some sort of prophet that connects to the religion. Huh, imagine that. But anyone
Oh,
want to share?
okay. That's
Any,
80. That's now that right there. Now I'm seeing what you're saying. That's 80.
Mhm.
That's 80 off the
And what
top.
does AD stands for?
After
After what?
after the death of
Christ.
No.
no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
There's another narrative to AD. After death, you could say, but no.
Okay.
Dominion. After
After
dominion.
Dominion.
Yep. So, but then Imhotep built a step pyramid in 10,000 BC.
Yeah.
10,000 years before any Jesus walked the earth or some prophet Muhammad came along. So then what were we worshiping and practicing? What was our religious and spiritual practices then? Because clearly we predate all of this. We predate, what's his name? The Jews follow. King Solomon, Moses, Job, John, whoever's in the Bible, whoever, whatever, in the Quran, all that. We predate it all. So then what's the deal with this Islam and Christianity and Buddhism? And I don't do religion. And that's the reason why the empire is a secular state. Yes, I know it comes out of an Islamic understanding, but I'll say it again. We still predate Islam. So what was the spiritual practice? So what am I speaking of? Saint Kofa, am I? Am I not? Am I speaking Saint Kofa? Anyone knows the laws of Saint Kofa?
I don't.
Someone does? I know we gotta know Saint Kofa. Come on, boys. Anyone knows the law of Saint Kofa? Or the principles of Saint Kofa?
So the Mayat principles.
I tell you what. Somebody pull up Google Saint Kofa and read what it says. Let's do it that way. Since this is an open discussion, training, or class, whatever.
Saint Kofa is an African word and concept originating from the Akan people of Ghana. Translate to, it is not taboo to fetch what is at risk of being left behind. Or more simply, go back and get it.
Go back and get, you got to reach back. It don't come from Ghana, from this concept. It's an ancient principle. Ghana is not ancient. Look up, Google establishment of Ghana, please, good brother. You start to see the tomfoolery in this, in the misinformation and the miseducation, and the manipulation of knowledge to keep us away from who we supposed to be. What is the year of the establishment of Ghana, good brother?
It says it achieved independence in 1957.
Under what? Ask under what law, or perhaps under what resolution or something like that from the United Nations Charter that they achieved their independence. Because there was no Ghana before that. I bet you to say Resolution 1514 and Resolution 1541 emerged as a sovereign and independent state, whereas the colonial countries must grant the independence to the colonial country. What is it called?
It says Chapter 6, Article 73 and 74, the Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories.
Okay. But yeah, yep, fair enough. But I just butchered the title to Resolution 1541. The granting of independence to colonial countries and peoples, that's what it's called. So whichever law they used the law in 1950, what, 56? They used an international law, the United Nations Charter laws, to establish their independence. So you're going to sit here and tell me that the law of St. Kofa, or the principles of St. Kofa, is as of 1956? You see the foolishness? Does everyone follow what I'm saying?
Islam.
I do.
It predates Ghana. The whole principle. Reach back. That's what we need to do. And our reach back goes far back by millennia. That's the problem. How far back do we go? Well, I would say during a time when we ran the whole world and examined and studied what we were doing then. Were we on our knees 5 times a week making salat? Or once at night before you go to bed on your knees? And end the prayer by saying, Amen, Ra. Because even the word amen or amen, that comes from Egypt. Amen, Ra. Did anyone know that?
Yeah.
This is how far off we are from who we are. And who has made it possible for us to end up so far off from who we are? The likes of Jermaine Diaz Spencer. Yeah, but the likes of certain characters, though, because it wasn't all of us.
Right.
It was a specific group with a certain character trait that worked against us. That's the good, and that's the battle between the good and the evil. The house Negroes versus the field Negroes. The field niggers are the angels. That's the good people. Those are the good ones. The house niggers are the devil. Those are the nappy-headed devils with black feathers on, and they light skin, and they like to be manipulators and carry names like Diaz. I'm from Panama, and my name ain't even no damn Diaz. My name is Abdul Smith, blacksmith, swordsmith. It's a Moorish name. Smith is not a European name. The slave name is not your family name. These names are ancient and old, and we gave them those names. Don't let them flip it on you, Morris. I've said this before. I've taught this before. Let me see if anyone remember. What is the slave name? Come on. What is the slave name? If it ain't your family name, so-called last name, then what is the slave name? That's another misconception that we've been under for a long time. We've been spellcasted. What is the actual slave name? Somebody help me out. Or I'll give you the opposite, the answer in an opposite way. Let me ask it this way. What is the free national name? I can hear the Jeopardy jingle playing in the background. What is the free national name? Moors? We're Moorish, aren't we? Didn't we used to be Moorish Americans? What is the free national name? Okay.
Free national name of what?
Of our people. What is our free national name? You guys never heard that terminology?
Moors.
Yeah.
Right. So what is the free nation? Okay, so you said Moors, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We're getting somewhere. So then if Moors is the free national name, then what is the slave name?
African American.
There you
Black.
go. There
Black.
you
Yeah.
go. There you go. That's the slave name, is the name applied to the nation as a whole that keeps you as a slave. Don't follow?
As
The free
long.
national name is Moroccan. Moor is just short for Moroccan, and Moorish is the adjective to describe a Moroccan or a Moor. They're all interchangeable terms. So the free national name is Moroccan. The slave name is Negro, Black, Colored, African American, or just simply American. That's the slave name. Don't let them bamboozle you, talking, oh, Smith is a slave name because that's a white man's name. Yeah, well, who was building swords? Who were the metal workers building swords and keys and locks? Smith is an occupational name. Whereas your occupation is that of a locksmith, a swordsmith, a metal worker. Those are Moors. So certainly Smith is not a slave name, and it's damn sure ain't a white man's name.
Yeah. I heard the Duke of Tears speak on Smith and its significance, and it not being a slave name.
Mm-hmm. That brother's very enlightened, very wise. I love Asir. He got on my nerves a couple years ago, but I still love him. He's a good brother. Yeah, that's the slave name. The name that was applied to the nation is I mean, that's the my bad. Smith is not the slave name. It's the official that we see. You know how they say everything is a reciprocal. Everything, you got to flip everything upside down because they taught you things upside down. So if they told you that the white man gave you his name, then what is the actual truth? The opposite. What's the opposite?
We gave them our name.
Because they told you that you were slaves to them. So then what is the opposite truth?
They are slaves to us.
Okay. We gave them our name. They were the slaves. Slavs. The capitulations of the regime that we are under is not slavery, it's capitulations, conquests, prisoners of war on our own homeland. That's just that we're not slaves.
were prisoners of war. The Empire of Morocco, the government is a government in exile right now. It's a government in exile. I bet you the so-called brilliant mind of Germain ain't never taught. They probably don't even know that or understand that concept. It's a government in exile, especially, particularly because it was reinstated. Where? Where was the Moxon for the empire reinstated? Where was it reinstated? What geographical location? Which makes it even more powerful.
America.
Because that's where it started anyway. Exactly. As such, all the Moors are where? Are emerging from what? Being subject to the jurisdiction thereof, the 14th Amendment of the American jurisdiction, in transition repatriating back to the Empire of Morocco. All right here in Morocco, Al-Maghrib, Al-Aqsa, the far west. Right where it started, because trust and believe, it didn't start in the east. The empire started in the west. Everything started over here in the west. This is the cradle of civilization. This is the motherland. Started in the west. It expanded to the east. Upon the fall began in the east and ended in the west. Is in Andalusia, Granada, the east? When Granada happened, the fall of Granada, 1492, 6 months later, after January and October, where did Christopher Columbus sail to? With the help of the Moors, the Moriscos. Where did he sail to?
The West.
The
India.
West. Well, he thought he was going to India. That's why he called them people Indian. But he sailed to the West. So then what ended up happening? Where did the final conquest take place? In the West. Whereas Plymouth Rock landed on us, we didn't land on them. So Plymouth Rock landed on the West. Conquered the West. But don't get it twisted. I know your imagination in your mind, based on your programming, you're thinking of some white man that came from the east over here to the west to conquer the West. You're thinking of some white dude. You better start thinking your own people. See, I don't get into the conversation or that foolish divisional discussion about the Moors versus the Moors. We're all Moors. You just had a segment of the Moors who ain't nothing, who are just dirty Moors. Ampac 2.0, that's a segment of Moors who are dirty Moors. And then you got your de jure, more godlike, high character morals and principles Moors that are in the de jure empire along with me and us. Period. That is an excellent representation of what they're trying to pitch as the Moors versus the Moors, but it's actually just the Moors. It doesn't matter how you spell it, M-A-U-R, M-U-U-R. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's all the same. It's just that you have a certain segment of the Moors that have flawed characters that are corrupt, that aided and abated the colonial activities of the foreign powers, or they did it themselves and placed the foreign powers as props while the Moors, conduct business as those behind the scenes, the hidden hand, the shadow government, a seditious approach to colonialism. They're seditiously behind the scenes, right? Remember, he said, "I'm the producer and I'm the director, and you're just the lead actor." Right, exactly. Thank you very much for saying that on a recorded meeting. You have those more behind the scene who are the actors and the directors and the producers, and they're using your Trumps and your Macrons and your King Charles and all of these pale faces as the lead actors, the faces. So now the subjugated black man is looking at the white man as his enemy. That's the trick. But when you go back and you look at Django, who signed the checks? Who was signing the checks for Candyland? Go back.
Steven.
Stephen was signing the checks. He who is as king is as king. Yes or no? So for you to come
Right.
out, bust out when you kick in the doorway, Vin the 4-4, talking about who is this nigga on this nag, you are questioning your so-called slave master. Yes or no, Morris?
Right.
Since when that fly? Since when that's okay? And then he's all in his face. They're having the meeting, the dinner meeting. Stephen comes out the back. So Leonardo, you need to get your behind in the back. Come on back here. And now he starts to question him and put a jewel in his head to now go and question Django. Y'all remember that part?
Yeah.
And he's sitting there with his legs crossed. You can see a lot of points in the movie where Stephen was conducting himself with full-fledged boss status. And you would question it to say, that's weird. I thought he was like the slave, and Leonardo DiCaprio, I forget his name, was the master. And what we know of slave movies, you don't question the master. But Stephen had the right to. Again, he used to sign the checks. There's a theme in which he was signing checks. That means he's the boss. What am I saying with all that? Again, Stephen was the behind the scenes sultan. Jermaine, he was the actor and producer behind the scenes, enslaving everyone. And he propped up the white man as the face of the whole thing, deceiving the slaves. So now the black man thinks that the white man is the enemy. In all actuality, is the black man that's behind that white man pretending to be his slave. That's your enemy. That's attacking you. That's coming after you. That's oppressing you. That's suppressing you. That's enslaving you. That's colonizing you. So again, and I apologize, Brian Wise here. I took over. My bad. I have to ramble. Again, and this stuff just flying off my head. But this is 20 years worth of studies. My brain is conditioned to absorb information. And so it just spills out of my mouth sometimes. And I done took over to me. But this is actually my open discussion. It's just I couldn't make it on time, and Prime was supporting me by conducting it or starting it off, and then I would be able to come in and support the presentation. And we work together. But I'm the Sultan, he's the Prime. You speak for the state. You ain't gonna see Chief Cicero on here teaching nothing. The same way Jermaine Diaz Spencer need to go sit down somewhere. It's very inappropriate. It looks bad. It's very inappropriate. It's bad practice. I'll never forget that. Well, I forgot what class it was, 84, whatever. He went silent. Y'all hear that silence? That's because I'm not speaking for the state. What? He ain't supposed to be speaking for the state at all, sir. But again, ego, arrogance, character flaw. He's the Sultan behind it. I could have easily been the Sultan. I could have easily. Well, why didn't you just run for it? I would have voted for you, sir. But you didn't, and the people, including you, voted for me. Sorry, I'm your boss, whether you like it or not. Because he said, you're not my boss. You're not our boss. Yes, I am. Article 10, preside is specific. Preside means preside, not what you want it to mean. What am I highlighting? Dirty Moor, sellout Negro character traits that need to be condemned. It needs to be absolutely condemned to all infinity. But we don't as a people. Why? Because we get caught up in certain beauties of the person. Because he's got a, that's why I keep telling people, it's not a forked tongue, it's a silver forked tongue. That's where they get caught up. The crooked smile, that's where they get caught up. And they disregard the underlying truth of that person because they're saying things that they like to hear. He has made statements such as, oh, they're watching me. Yeah, I bet they are. Oh, I bet they are. Mr. Sean Carter, Mr. Illuminati. He ain't to be trusted. He's not to be trusted. He needs to be condemned. All of those over there need to condemn him. And, you know, Cujo has been trying to condemn him for years. We didn't listen. Learn the lesson. And now I'm pushing a narrative along with Cujo to say he needs to be condemned. A dirty Moor in a black fez, pretending to be something that he's not, because he's already been removed. You know, damn judge. Kendon is not no damn sultan. He was removed as a wazir. Sun Jr. Dre, he was removed as prime minister and wazir. So now you got him pretending to be the prime minister and the wazir. The drug dealer pretends to be the prime minister or the wazir and the the sultan. This is straight tomfoolery nonsense that's not going to get us anywhere, Moors. We were better off being united. Y'all can't do it without me. I'm the chosen one, Ampac 2.0, and y'all know this. You can't do it without me. You can't do it without my presentation. You can't do it without my energy. You can't do it without my knowledge. You can't do it without my approach. I'm the favorite of heaven. Kendon is nothing more than a little boy just coming out of drug dealing. He got a lot to learn in life. And Jermaine thinks he's supposed to wear 5, 6, 7 different hats. Well, in all actuality, what was supposed to happen is we were supposed to remain in unity with everyone wearing their own respective hats. We don't need you to wear our hats, sir. Go sit down somewhere. Everyone wear their own damn hats. And let the Sultan be the Sultan. In unity, loyalty, conformity, and obedience that builds what? Harmony and patriotism. But instead, because of ego and arrogance, and I did this, and I did that, and all of this is mine, whereas it's intellectual property of the empire, but I did all this, so therefore it's all mine, and I'm not to be questioned. My boss cannot set forth no investigation against me. No, sir. Instead, I'm just going to bring together all my stupid minions and push forward with a fraudulent impeachment. So then it calls for the smart ones with the proper character to go in one direction along with me, and all the dummies to go in another direction with their daddy. And in the middle of all that, guess who's laughing? I'm listening. Guess who's laughing with tears coming out their eyes? I'm listening. Who's laughing?
United States.
Colonists.
Who else? All 12 of them. 12 of who?
Signatory powers.
Yes, but they respect me, though. I bet you they do. Oh, I bet you they respect me. I could assure you of that. They saw how I handled this problem. They saw how I dealt with this Negro, U.S. citizen Negro pretending to be a Moroccan, a criminal in both jurisdictions. He is riddled with criminal mischief, which is why he can no longer be mergers and acquisitions along with his daddy, Lauren. That's why he got to now establish, steal the AG's idea to have to own and operate a security company. Now he wants to create one and steal his client. Imagine that. No. Why don't you go back to mergers and acquisitions, sir? Oh, you can't, because you're a criminal and you will find out. That's why you're owed 30,000 from that white lady, and she won't pay you. So he would tell the Moors, "Oh, I stopped. I quit mergers and acquisitions for the Moors, so I can study for the Moors, because the Moors don't have time to sit around and study." That was a compelling story. Good game, Jay. But come to find out, the real truth of the matter is you were booted for being a fraud. Again, he's a criminal in both jurisdictions, American and Moroccan jurisdiction. The man is just a criminal, and he's running a criminal rank with all these other criminals. Kendon, Mansour, Chad, all of them are criminals. It's an embarrassment to the state. Whereas these colonists can look me up. July 23rd, 1978, Abdul V. Smith. Tickets. And that's from me trying to be a Moorish American, Moorish civic Moor, whatever. Stand in my square, demonstrating. You got to demonstrate to keep the demon straight. That's how we used to talk. Got caught up with that. And even before that, but traffic stuff is my point. You ain't gonna see no manslaughter. You ain't gonna see no breaking and entering and robbing people, Mansour. You ain't gonna see a 20-year career as a drug dealer on a stoop, brain dead sultan. They call him tumbleweed. What you're gonna see is an astute person. They hear me speak. I just finished clarifying for you all that the Europeans have an equal right to economic liberty without any inequality. Did I not? Do you not think that they admire that? They know my level of understanding and they know who I am. So if they're watching you, sir, they're watching me. They're watching both of us, sir. But for two different reasons, good brother. One is that I like him, talking about me. But they like you too, because you're a bird of a feather with them. You're a colonist and an obstructionist. So they're caught in the middle. What do? One is like us, the other one, he's about the people. But he's also fair to us. You see the difference? This is the difference between Abdul Smith Al-Kabir and Jermaine Diaz Spencer. It's like saying the difference between Tupac and Jay-Z. All about the money, all about the flashing. He's a, mergers and acquisitions. I'm a shark. He's a shark. He's Shark Dame Dash. I'm a revolutionary. I'm a warrior. I'm a career revolutionary. And the revolution don't pay. It ain't about the dollar. Because currency means nothing if you still ain't free. So Tupac taught us, currency means nothing if you still ain't free. But how are we going to achieve freedom if we are programmed to self-destruction with bad character traits? Horrible character traits, not just like regular, like everyone has, no one is perfect, but Lord have mercy. Must you maintain and have such a wicked disposition? And unaccountability. A devil in a blue dress. That's Jermaine Diaz Spencer. A devil in a blue dress with a black fez on. Devil's son. I'm God's son. He's devil's son. You see, I'm drawing a parallel difference between me and that clown. 55-year-old child. How are we supposed to decolonize Moors when the one who put us on the path to decolonization, supposedly the proper way, absent of the so-called ICJ? That ain't happening, Captain. But nonetheless, despite the misconcept, the direction was still the direction of for our liberation is correct. We just needed to clean up some things that he misrepresented. That person, when that person tries to disrespect and overthrow the Sultan, hear me out. And therefore, the empire of the government of the empire, and also the will of the people, disregarded the will of the people. And you expect for decolonization to take form, to be made manifest with someone like that? But again, he is not the first, and he's not going to be the last. Who killed Noble Ali? Black people, Moors. Who killed Il Malik? Moors. Who killed Martin Luther King? Moors. Who did anything to any of our leaders? Moors. We are always attacking us. You saw the jealous brother, the brother that put Il Malik on in jail. Now Il Malik is capturing the world, and he's sitting on the side-eyeing him. Jealous and envious of Il Malik. Sounds familiar to me. And then he puts together whatever to have him dealt with, because he don't like that he is getting all this shine as the minister, and he ain't getting nothing. Jealousy, envy, these character traits. So instead of that man focusing on the potential freedom that Malcolm X would have been able to achieve or help us achieve, he wants to look at his feelings about jealousy and envy because the world loved Malcolm X. This is the problem with our people. I'll ask again, how are we to decolonize under these circumstances, whereas it is our own people that we're going up against? And you can't even tell because we're all look the same. So maybe we should have a bunch of white people in the government, because guess what? I can tell. And I trust them. I have no problems with them. Oh, I don't. I'm mature. I have grown up from the whole blue-eyed devil narrative, radical Black Panther freedom fighter narrative, to now understanding who the real enemy is. And they look like Jermaine. They look like Isaac. They look like Amir. They look like Makara. They look like Dominique. They look like Kendon. They look like Dre. They damn sure look like Monica. But it's not a look per se. It is a character trait that you got to catch on to. And I've gotten good at that. He maintained it for 2 years. That's why he was able to get so far with me. But the moment he started to show it is when he went wrong. I'm not the one. And he knew this about me. The moment you switch up on me, it's over. Not the one. I don't play these games. I am not Dre. I am not Kendon. I'm not Isaac. No one puts a thong on me. And that's exactly what he has done to them. Every last one of them. Permanently. Permanently, that is. We got some growing up to do as a people. We got to stop looking at personalities and start looking at the truth of who and what we are and what our obligations and responsibilities truly are. If we want to complete this decolonization process, we got to hold each other accountable. But it first starts with your own self-accountability of any wrongdoings on your part, to then course correct and then we can move forward in unison, in harmony. Until then, decolonization may just be a damn fantasy because it's not happening without you, black man, becoming a Moor. But when you say becoming a Moor, I'm not talking about a Moor that's a black man that's Moorish conscious, i.e., you still got the Negro attitude and the Negro mentality. When I say you're a Moor, that means you have come to a position in which your morals have been uplifted. You have come to higher self. Because, like I've said before, the reason why the devil reigns supreme is because the Moors are in lower self. The lower self is the devil. We are the devil because we all operate in the lower self. As Negroes, blacks, coloreds, misclassified, naturalized people, we rise up as noble Moors. Bring back the nobility, the noble nature of our character, in which people used to always bow to us in great regard because we come bearing gifts, teaching lessons, uplifting people. That's where you need to go back, black man. And that's when now Allah reigns supreme because now you're in higher self. So the decolonization starts with your spirit. It starts with your soul. It starts with your mindset. Before you even recognize that you're a Moroccan, you must have to start to understand as a people collectively that we are directly from divine source, the children of God as the firstborn. And our obligation and responsibility is to care for all of our brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters, which is everyone else. All the other nations, the red, the yellow, the white, i.e., the white man, the Chinese, the right, the Indians, whoever, whatever. But the first race on planet Earth is the melanated Moor. We are the firstborn of Allah. With that comes real responsibilities and obligations, which is why we're tasked with the divine mission to uplift fallen humanity under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Well, what took place in Impact 2.0, it's not love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. It's the exact opposite. Watson Ali, Mr. So-called Grand Sheik, you damn fool. You went against the 5 principles that you have been studying and standing on for 15 or so years, sir. You went against love. You damn sure went against truth. I don't care nothing about love. I care about truth. You went against truth. You went against peace, freedom, and justice. Because I remind everyone again, it was Watson Ali who cautioned me of what Jermaine was trying to do and turned around and said, okay, I'm going to go with Jermaine. What? Y'all got to understand my confusion. But then it lets me know who's who, and that's all I need to know. Ain't no one heard from me. Yet Jermaine is reaching out to me, but no one has heard from me. I don't got nothing to say to nobody. No one reach out to me. I won't reach out to you. We are done. There's absolutely nothing to be said to any one of you, good, bad, or indifferent. You're dead in my book, as far as I'm concerned. There has never been a moment in which I asked anyone to go find out or fish for information from what Impact 2.0 is doing, because I could care less what the hell they're doing. Whatever information that comes across, it comes across on GP. But not me fishing and looking, but they're fishing and looking, trying to find out what we're doing. All in our Kool-Aid. No, don't need to. Because this is full transparency. Ain't nobody trying to hide nothing around here. It's y'all with the clandestine secrets. It's everything is a secret. Make sure that we don't let anyone know. Make sure it's secret. They don't need to know secret. That's straight back. Which then relegates you to a clandestine organization and not a government that's supposed to be operating with full transparency. Did y'all hear what the hell I said? This is why we can't decolonize, or haven't decolonized, I should say, because we still can and we still will. As time goes on, the cream rises to the top. And those that are tasked with such a divine mission are being gathered. Allah is gathering the troops. This is a divine first, national second. Allah is gathering the troops that he needs, with Sultan Al-Kabir leading the front. Oh, you ain't like that, did you? Yeah. And everyone else is coming along together. So when it happens is when it's going to happen. Nothing happens before it's time. This is a divine movement. First and primarily, national second. It took the divine nature to come to the realization of who you are to even establish the national side of this thing. So it's divine first. Noble was correct. And he referred to the Sultan as the favorite of heaven. The first one, that's where it comes from. That's why I say it. It's not an arrogant position. It's what's in the chapter 22 of the Holy Quran. Chapter 22, circle 7. O thou favorite of heaven. That's how it starts off. That's where it comes from. The narrative, when I say it, it's not an egotistical thing. I'm just quoting Noble Drew Ali's literature. So the ancestors and Mother Allah is gathering the troops. She is putting this thing together. We're all pawns in the game to a higher power. So let it play out. Let it play out. And in due time, you shall see Jermaine meet the wrath of Allah is going to come down on him. I promise you that. Him and all his minions will meet their fate. And I ain't doing nothing. The AG ain't doing nothing. The Prime ain't doing nothing. That's left up to Allah. That's out of our hands, sir. That's out of our hands. Let God speak. Let God strike you down. And all of those, it's not limited to him. His favorite president, Barry Soetoro, him too. Because he's an obstructionist and a colonist first because he held the seat of a president. That's a colonist seat. The government is the colonial power, regardless on who holds the seat. Those faces change every 4 years or every 8 years. And while you're holding that seat, you had a duty to your people, Obama. You failed us. You absolutely failed us. I don't care nothing about no codified speech. Miss me with that. We're men. A man is supposed to say what he means and mean what he say. Don't code it because you're scared of what. If that's the case, then don't say nothing then. Don't tease me. I hope everyone understands what the hell I'm saying here. Listen, in order for us to complete the mission, we got to find not only unity amongst us, but unity amongst those who have the proper character. Because as long as we're surrounded by people with the Jermaine and the Monica and the Dre and the Isaac and the Amir and the Watan Ali and all of those clowns, those types of characters, we're not going to get anywhere. So some of you who have left, please be gone. Bye. Thank you. Slim the fat. It's going to happen regardless, whenever it happened, under the divine guidance of Allah. I'm using that term, though earlier I said I'm not Christian, I'm not religious at all. But I'm using that term to relate. The term that I would more than likely use is the Most High, or the universal principles, the ethers, or even the ancestors. But in an attempt to relate, I have no problems saying Allah, because at the end of the day, it's truly arm, leg, arm, head. The Moors in their higher self. Arm, leg, arm, head, God body. The body of Osiris that was scattered all over planet Earth, cut up and scattered. ISIS had to go around finding those parts of the body to bring it together in unity as one, but was missing the phallus. Couldn't find the phallus and engineered a golden phallus. That golden phallus represents the power of the pen. So we are the body of Osiris. We are the rise of the Black Messiah. It's not one person, it's a group coming together. The 144,000, a minuscule amount. It's not specifically 144,000 people. It's a representation to a minuscule amount in comparison to the totality of the population on planet Earth. 7 billion people to 144,000 it's like less than negative 0%. Very minuscule. Okay, well, the empire is a very minuscule group of people who got knowledge of self, but are dealing with an internal discord between good and evil. And as we know, good will always prevail. And the bad, the devil side, the left-hand side, the dark side, the stormtroopers with Chancellor Palpatine, the emperor, the behind-the-scenes emperor, going up against the Jedi. And I'm Luke. And I'm Luke. And I will deal with Palpatine. I am dealing with Palpatine. But not on my own accord. I'm just a pawn in the game. I'm being guided by a higher power. Period. So there's no concerns here. Call ICE, fool. Call ICE. It doesn't matter. I run the empire from Panama. It's still Morocco, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Go ahead, call ICE. Call the police. Call the po-po-ho. Go ahead, call them. Uh-huh. We got to get it together as a people if we want to decolonize. I've been rambling. But I've been saying some real stuff if you've been listening, and I hope you have been listening to take heed to a lot of what I'm saying. Because the primary takeaway from this, what I have to say, is as a people, who and what is keeping us from achieving decolonization? And that's been this way for centuries now. Or should I say, not even centuries, a century. Because we just fell in the 1900s, early 1900s. We ain't been like subjugated and oppressed and all that since like the 1800s and the 1700s. That's not true. That is so not true. Only been down for a century. A century and a couple of decades. What are we in, 2026? So that's 2 decades. So from 1900 to 2000, that's a century. And then the 2026, so it's a century and 2 decades. That's a long time, though. It becomes customs and usage. And so we're operating under customs and usage based on capitulations and acquiescence. And all of it is being fed by those same Negro Moors who are supposed to be our brothers and sisters to assist in achieving sovereignty and independence, but instead they're actually working against us. We're working against each other. And the middleman in this whole scheme is Trump, it's Macron, it's King Charles, whatever head of state, whatever, they're not Moors. They're the middleman They're standing in between the Moors, the elite Moors that are behind the scenes, pulling the strings, like on John Wick 3, and then the fallen angels, the fallen soldiers, the fallen warriors, i.e., the rest of us who came under the subjugation of them, of them through their minions or their Mamelukes. You mentioned Asir the Duke of Tears, Wazir Rashid. That's an excellent, he's an excellent resource to learn about the Mamelukes and the behind the scenes operations of the Moors going against their own people. So it's not Moors versus the Moors, it's the Moors versus the Moors, period. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's a particular group of people that are going against the rest of us. Boule and etc. Jay Boule, your Jay Boules of the world, your Stephen Candys of the world, your Tobys of the world, your house Negroes that were trained by other white men to be sharks, and then they sent you out into the waters to shark your own damn people and theirs as well. Shark whoever that comes around. Can't trust someone with that type of character. And that has been proven as of October 1st, 2025. So the takeaway, right? The conversation was about extraterritoriality. I recognize that, and I've taken it into a different direction somewhat, but it still remains germane to the conversation, because at the end of the day, we can speak about the Arabs, we can speak about the white man, we can speak about everyone else, but that's just us pointing the finger at other people. When are we going to be self-accountable? When are we going to point the finger to our damn self? And it's us why we are where we are and why we're having difficulties rising up. It's all you, black man, black woman, that's supposed to be operating as a Moor, but not just operating as a Moor, operating as a higher self Moor, not a lower self Moor like Jermaine, a higher self Moor like yours truly, or the AG, or the Prime Minister or Kill. These are higher self Moors. I am very accountable for any mistakes that I may have made, if you can get me to see it. The AG is very accountable. The Prime Minister is very accountable. That's higher self. Lower self is deflection. I'm just going to deflect it. Oh, he wants to ignore the word preside, and he thinks that he thinks that he has power, but preside means this, but then it doesn't mean that. That's deflecting. Instead of just being accountable to say, yes, man, I probably shouldn't be wearing all 5 hats, even though the Moors may have agreed to it. I still shouldn't do it, because on the surface, it really doesn't look good. It makes us look bad. Moors, it's time for you all to step up, and I can't be wearing your hats anymore. Let's all wear our own hats. I'm just going to stay in my lane, and let's figure this out together. That's accountability. That's forward progress. That's good character. Anything else less than that is uncivilized, and he's a savage, a wicked savage. And any and all things that he does henceforth is not withstanding. I don't care nothing about no damn tags. Yes, I heard of it. The little black and white American looking tags. Oh, we got to blend in. We got to look like them. So we need black and white tags because we need to blend in and look like them. Everything we do needs to be like them. So we use certain terms and we do certain things to look and appear like them, while ignoring and disregarding your own cultural practices. Well, we ain't having that over here. We stand on our own cultural practices. Not all that, we're going to do it as they do. We're going to do it like them. Say that for your mama, clown. Nobody cares about no damn tags. I didn't come here for tags. I didn't come here for the right to travel. I didn't come here for a license plate or some ID. None of that. Moors, this is a question for the floor, and with that, I would yield. What did I come here to do? What did I come here for? What is my middle name?
Vincent.
Decolonization. He said Vincent. That's my birth name. I mean, my nickname, my middle name nickname. I've said it many times. My middle name is decolonization. I'm here to decolonize. I'm not here for some right to travel and some feel good instrument on the back of my car just to feel good. Oh, I got my own tag. I feel good. Yeah, but in the meantime, you get pulled over. You got to explain it. No. I'm here for Trump to get Congress to pass a bill that says whenever you see these plates, whenever you see these IDs, whenever you see these people, stand clear. That's what I'm here for. Okay, nothing about the feel good stuff in between. That's the BS that I've been talking about. It's a waste of time. It's nothing more than a distraction. Keep going in circles doing this and that and all these other things that has nothing to do with the direct path of decolonization. What happened to the ICJ? You ain't got to answer that. I already know. Fool. Islam Prime, I apologize for taking over the class. But clearly I had a lot to say. Right? Based on this topic. Because I will not let go of the reasons for why we have been oppressed and colonized for the past century plus. And we see it over and over again. And I'm going to ask again, who assassinated Noble Ali? The Moors. Who assassinated Il Malik? The Moors. Who assassinated Martin Luther King? The Moors. Whether you agree with it or not, believe in it or not, it's irrelevant. But who got Malachi York locked up? The Moors. It's us. It's us. So like Michael Jackson said, the man in the mirror, look in the mirror. Whenever you're looking for the enemy, whenever you're looking for a colonizer, whenever you're looking for an obstructionist, whenever you're looking for those that have bamboozled you, hoodwinked you, led you astray, look in the mirror and you will find the evil culprit. So how do we course correct from that? Morality, accountability, higher self, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We must stand on those principles. It was presented to us for a reason. That's the gateway to our higher self. Because there's nothing higher on planet Earth. There is no higher energy and higher vibration than love. And everything else after that fall into place. Islamors, I'll leave you with that. You open the floor for any comments, questions, concerns. Apologize, Prime, again for taking over. But yeah, I'll open up the floor for any comments, questions, or concerns before we close out. Islam, by you.
Point of interest, just to um, uh, close out here, will end the conversation off as far as a few questions that I was going to answer as it relates to ones you asked earlier in the conversation. But as it relates to the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, and all of that, the to your point earlier, the empire has had treaties since the BC times, but more specifically as it relates to codification, excuse me, the empire, has had several, documents, declarations, the here's, outside of treaties. The codification I'm referring to is the codification of some like Sharia law, opposed to, hey, you're doing 3 to 5 years instead of getting your hand cut off, or penal code, certain civil, criminal, or any contractual, any penal code, any type of codification, civil, in which that the European states took the lead on that more so, um, especially given the fact that we were essentially being colonized from both sides. Our own empire, the Arabs, then you got of course, the colonizers on the other side. So the forward progress of the empire, and I'm not sure if you was in that meeting when I stated this, but the forward progress of the empire wasn't um, like it is today. I'll say that. So, uh, that's pretty much what I meant by the codification. There were certain specifics. Yeah, Sharia law being one of the more commonly known ones that people tend to worry about if the Moors came back online, in which we have, and obviously that's not the law we uphold. But due to those different types of codes is what I specifically was referring to. Just to answer that question. But
Thanks for that clarity.
yeah, yeah. Um, so just to just state this, and I'll yield with this. This study guide, even though it's labeled Town Hall Study Guide, I mislabeled it. This study guide can be passed out just to kind of go over to show y'all what it looks like. It's pretty much the same thing over and over, right? We have the Treaty of Madrid and the 6 ways in which you can call out ETJ, what specific articles, right? So you got the Treaty of Madrid 1880. You got the Act of Algeciras, right? 1906. The treaty between Britain and Morocco in 1856. And some of these take a different effect. Um, but the Treaty of Toulouse between Spain and the Empire of Morocco, 1860. So we're going into other treaties that most people are not familiar with. I won't go into that now, but again, whoever would like this study guide can put their uh, email address in the chat, and I'll send it to you. And if you're official and you would like this at some other time, you can just reach out to me and I'll send it to you. But just to go down some of these, obviously we're not reading through it all, but we also have France, the treaty with France, and just to scroll. Yeah, somebody had a question.
I just wanted to camelback off of what you were saying, Prime. It's the AG here. I would probably say one of the Moors have always been taught, go to the Peace and Friendship Treaty. Uh, uh, if you want to know what you really needed, yeah, the 1906 Act of Algeciras is the treaty, basically the treaty of all treaties, is teaching the Moors on how to run their empire. But what caps it off before that, which told the Moors on exactly what they needed, was the 1856 treaty between Great Britain and Morocco. That treaty talks about His Majesty and Her Majesty. So when you're talking about that treaty, without the Sultan, that's how the Moors fell. Is that we stop having someone that overseeing our country. We stop having a head of state. The Great Britain also talks about, that's why the United States citizens are up under what you call British law. That's why it's called the BAR, the British Accredited Registry. Well, how did they fall up under British law? They fell up under British law by the whole concept of us not having what? A His Majesty. So there was nowhere for the Moor subjects to go, but besides the so-called United States. But the United States is actually running all their laws through Great Britain. Hopefully I'm making sense more. So if you never read all the Moors from the beginning of our teachings, there was a treaty that everyone forgot about. The treaty that everyone forgot about, explaining to you that we needed a sultan because Great Britain was only doing business with His Majesty and the Empire of Morocco, is that 1856 treaty between Great Britain and Morocco. All treaties are important, but we also have to remember the timelines and the importance of the importance of the head of state, not an RBV Publications, not a Grand Sheik, not a Wazir. Doesn't talk about those people. It talks about the Sultan, His Majesty, the Sharifian Empire. So that 1856 treaty, which we went over in the AG and Council General classes, that's a treaty that everyone needs to read, because the peace and friendship was just that's just a basic treaty talking about on how we should treat each other. The 1906 Act of Algiers is talking about on how to run the empire, but none of that even matters without the 1856 Treaty of Great Britain telling you that you need a head of state. That's who they were doing business with, was His Majesty the Sultan. I yield. Islam.
Allow me to add to that, Prime, real quick, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
please. Let me do that. Yes, the AG, yeah, that's without a doubt, absolutely true. It's always been about His Majesty the Sultan. It's about His Majesty the Sultan. I mean, it just is what it is. It's the head of state, and that treaty definitely highlights that. But let's not disregard the most important treaty, though that one is holds a certain level of importance and a paramount nature. To the AG's point, in today's modern times, there is no Empire of Morocco, there is no Abdul Al-Kabir Sultan without which treaty and article?
I'm guessing Treaty of Madrid.
Uh-huh. Which article?
I believe
Which?
Article 15.
Uh-huh. And why?
Uh,
Oh, yes, Miss Valerie, I'm all over you. And why?
well,
And everybody pay attention to this. Go ahead, sister. You got it. Even if you want to take a wild guess, just try. Go ahead, Miss Valerie. Don't be scared. Don't be shy. Don't get shy now.
you have to totally submit to
Uh-huh.
Morocco. You have to totally submit to the laws of Morocco.
Correct. Correct. So you must choose the entire submission, though.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because you're coming from what status?
You're coming from a subject status. You're coming from a
That's
non-citizen
correct.
status.
I'm looking for a specific word.
Mm,
Starts with an N.
and naturalize.
Naturalization. So remember how it goes, right? Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country must choose the entire submission to the laws of the empire. So it's important to us because it gives us the ability to repatriate back to Mother Morocco, to then reestablish our true divine national identity that was once obsolete and without effect, no effect to enforce laws, right? Because ain't no black man or Negro is going to be enforcing their own laws. They can enforce the white man's laws as a protege, but you ain't going to be enforcing your own laws as a Moroccan. You can't be a black man, the status of a black man enforcing Moroccan laws. It doesn't work that way. You must choose the entire submission. So without that, there is no article, there is no treaty of the Act of Algeciras that we can now enforce today. So what the AG was pointing out, which was basically an SOP, standard operating procedures for how to run our empire. It's essentially what it is. But it ain't happening without first reclaiming the nationality. Islam. So
Now,
There's
can I
equal
add to
value.
you? Can I add to that
Yes,
too?
yes,
So
yes, yes, AG, yes. Go ahead. Yes.
no. Now let's talk about what he just said. And believe me, I'm sorry I was late tonight. I was really doing something with my son that was important to him. So sorry I'm late, but you know, Allah works in mysterious ways. I jumped in the right
We
time.
don't care. We appreciate you coming nonetheless, Islam.
Okay. So think about what he just said, Morris. Anybody that was naturalized in a foreign country. So in a foreign country, don't matter what country, in a foreign country. Stay with me, everyone. Abdul Smith Al-Kabir was naturalized in a foreign country. What country was that, Morris? Because remember how they said that he was, I'm not going to give y'all the answer. What country was Abdul Smith Al-Kabir naturalized in?
Panama.
Thank you. Does it in Article 15 say, does it say a Pacific country in Article 15?
No.
Oh, so why did the nefarious Jermaine Diaz Spencer start talking about Panama? Because he didn't fully understand. He knew that the Moors didn't fully understand what they were reading. You see on how he messes with your brain? He says the Moors don't understand this. Let me go this route and say he's from Panama. But Article 15 says anyone naturalized in a foreign country can come back home to the Empire of Morocco. Now, Panama, is Panama a signatory power to the Treaty of Madrid? That's a question for the floor. Talking legal.
No.
Who is?
Spain.
Yes.
And who naturalized Panama?
Spain.
Ah. See, Morris, you win. See, Morris, when you study, when you deep study, that's a deep dive. That's a deep study. People can't pull the wool over your eyes when you know the truth. It didn't name a Pacific country. It just said in a foreign country. There are many foreign countries. So when you say somebody cannot come home to the Empire of Morocco because they were naturalized in a foreign country, does everyone see on how he lied to the people? Does everyone see on how Dominique made herself look stupid talking about he's Panamanian because she didn't? As a judge, she's supposed to know. As a judge, she's supposed to interpret the law, right or wrong. Isn't the treaties the supreme law of the land?
She's
Yeah.
not a judge. She's a peddler.
I'm just saying, though. I'm just saying at the time of what
No,
she
no, I
thought.
know. She's a
Yeah,
peddler, though, nonetheless. That's
correct.
all she is.
But she was supposed to know that, and she was supposed to. These people were supposed to correct a certain individual when they started saying that, but because they did not understand what they was reading, they just went with it. And once again, you lose. Because what you read is what you read. It says in a foreign country. It didn't name any Pacific country. Abdul Smith Al-Kabir, very transparent, let us know about his naturalization in Panama. Upfront and honest, how do you think they received his documentation? Your Sultan stands today as a Sultan that speaks many different languages. Did everyone on the call know that the Sultan spoke many different languages? Abdul Smith Al-Kabir, did y'all know that?
Well, not many,
That's
just 3.
or
Not
just what
many. Yeah.
the main 2. Well, let's talk about the Spanish, which was the original language that was spoken through the Moors to communicate with other foreign countries. Abdul Smith Al-Kabir speaks that language. So when you take a sultan, and now he can go to a foreign country and speak his different language, not just English, and also speak Spanish, that's very powerful. So yes, Article 15 is very important, but it also brought out
You cut out, AG.
how they tried to muddy the water. People didn't fully understand what naturalization in a foreign country meant. But the Treaty of Madrid told you the truth. And Spain is a signatory power, and Panama was colonized through Spain. Islam, does that make sense to everyone?
Well, if you don't mind, if it doesn't make sense to anyone, let's elaborate slightly more. So then,
Please.
if someone from Haiti, Haitian brother, can he choose the entire submission? Because Haiti is not one of the signatories, but can a Haitian choose the entire submission?
He's in Morocco.
I would say yes.
Yes, but not because he's in Morocco. Well, yes, that's part of it. Let me not confuse you. But I'm going somewhere. We're talking about the Treaty of Madrid and the signatories. So, who colonized Haiti?
Right?
Somebody else want to give it a shot?
French.
Correct. Who colonized Puerto Rico?
America.
Huh?
I would say France. France.
Yeah. Spain.
Spain, that's correct.
Okay, Spain.
Who colonized Brazil?
Spain. Or Portugal.
Portugal. You see? Any one of those Moors in those territories can choose the entire submission, and regardless on the modern country, because the modern country is nothing more than a front, if you will, for the colonizing power. So Spain colonized Panama and then turned it into Panama. There's not been one time there's been one black Panamanian president. Yet Panama is, the population of Moors in Panama is astounding. Same as Brazil. And y'all recall the class that I did on Panama to show and prove some of these points. Moorish architecture and everything in Panama, Moorish architecture in all these territories, Brazil, etc. All these, Chile, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Peru. See, all those Spanish-speaking countries were colonized by who?
Foreigners.
Spain. Spain. That's why they speak Spanish. There was once upon a time, you had the French protectorate, right? At the same time, you also had the Spanish protectorate. Did y'all know that? I hope you did know that. There was the Spanish protectorate. At the same time as the French protectorate was the dominant protectorate because of the Treaty of Fez. And France extended authority to Spain to have their protectorate. Crazy work. But what the AG is saying is absolutely on the money. Because what he did was he master of manipulation, fork-tonguing, silver fork-tonguing. So he knows better, absolutely disregards Spain. Only to say, well, Panama is not one of the signatories, so he shouldn't choose the entire submission. Oh, well, that was the case back in 2024, sir. That was the case back in 2023. That was the case back in 2022. That was the case back in 2021. That's been the case since 1992. And I have always been absolutely transparent about that. Suddenly it's, oh, he's Panamanian, while disregarding the fact that Panama was colonized by the signatory power, Spain. Islam Wars. This is who and what. This is the type of wickedness and tomfoolery that the Moors are dealing with. I yield.
On the
It's
privilege.
yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask the Sultan something about is that why you think Trump went into Venezuela, just took over the presidency because he knew this guy was had more Spanish in him.
Uh,
The
Good
original
question.
people. Okay.
I don't know, but potentially there's other narratives such as having to do with the involvement of the Dominion voting system. He's still on that about the stealing of the elections. So I've heard that narrative. But as it relates to us as a people, I'm not sure because Maduro, he doesn't come to the defense or speak up on behalf of Moors, do he? It's a question for you or anyone else on the floor. Does he speak up for the black man in America? Who speaks up for the black man in America on an international level? No daggone body. The closest one to do it as of late is the president of Colombia. And he never used the word Moors, but he says he used some strong language to suggest exactly that. Ain't heard from it no more ever since then. So regarding anything dealing with the Moors and the capture of Maduro, I don't know. Could be a stretch. I think it's more feasible for it to deal with something dealing with the Dominion voting system, which then would give him jurisdiction over Maduro because you was meddling with American jurisdiction. So therefore, you have given me jurisdiction to come and deal with you. This is the only way in which that would make any sense without violating international law. But yeah, I don't. To answer your question though specifically, I don't know, and I don't think so. Islam.
But he's also attacking Cuba, and
Yeah.
that's a Spanish also.
Well, then I mean, yeah, but now the surface understanding is the connection to China. But if you want to look at it from a deeper perspective, um, of these territories being Moorish territories and such, I mean, certainly we can make a case that a lot of his operations behind the scenes may very well. I mean, Tashariq Bey said it before, and it was eloquently stated and properly stated, in which he mentioned when she stated that all geopolitical activities deals with the Moors in one way, shape, form, or fashion, and he's absolutely correct about that. So it's not far fetched to uh, recognize that all these foreign affairs, into political foreign affairs that they engage in, has something to do with us in some shape, form, or fashion. I'm still waiting to find out what's the results of the so-called gold audit. What happened to that? See, that's dealing with Moorish culture. Fort Knox, the building is a Habu property. Look at it. It's a Moorish building. That's Moorish gold. Suddenly you want to count it. Okay, well, what's the result? Because it hasn't been accounted for since I think Nixon, they say. Um, there's a lot that's going on geopolitically that deals with us. Everything deals with us in one way, shape, form, or fashion. I can't articulate specifically what it is because I'm not privy, right? I'm not behind the scenes with these folks. That's the thing about the general population and why you got to be careful with the general media news outlet because they're not going to tell you what's really going on behind the scenes. They'll give you the surface story, the narrative that's been scripted. The world is a stage, right? It's a Truman Show. Everything is a script, and there's actors and directors. I mean, producers and directors and cameramen and such behind the scenes. It's a Hollywood production. The world is a Hollywood production. So to be by, we. This is the reason why it's so powerful to have a document such as the French protectorate, where the French government was having this conversation with the American government. That gives you a behind the scenes picture places you as a fly on the wall, hearing this conversation in this boardroom or whatever meeting room that in which they're having these discussions. So it's a credible reference point because but they're saying to one another is not for you to know. They're talking to themselves about you, but you ain't supposed to know. That's why that's so we don't know what's going on behind the scenes, though they may present something else on the surface. And I could assure you, to your point, good brother, is that a lot of what's being presented on what's behind the scenes has far more to do with us and the rise of the empire, the rising of the empire, even the discord that the empire is having as it rises, going through its varying stages of advancement. There's a discord, right? And they're very well aware of it. Me sending him a letter, that's me preaching to the choir, because he already knows. You think Trump don't already know? Don't he always say, "Hey, the United States, they're watching me"? Yeah, they're watching you. They're watching the man-packed study sessions. They know. So I didn't have to tell Trump to go back and look at 174 and 175 to determine the incompetent nature of that title, the Sultan's coup, the Sultan's failed coup attempt. That's wow, bro. Did you really do yourself that way? You just exposed your stupidity. So the competent eyes of his administration would see that. The incompetent eyes of the Moors, they're not going to see that. They're going to say, oh, that guy tried to overthrow the government. Not to understand that what a coup means, that I'm trying to seize power for myself. Foolishness. So they already know what's going on with us. From the beginning to the end. I'm talking about back to AMPAC, WRC, then the empire. So yeah, as far as Cuba, Venezuela, Iran, right? That's an ancient civilization. Used to be Persia. What kind of connection does that have to the? You see what I'm saying? So, and they're operating out of our jurisdiction. So certainly everything has to do with us. On what capacity, though, is the question. I don't know, but what I do know is that everyone on planet Earth have been silent. They remain silent. They don't want to speak to this. So we have to bring this conversation to the forefront by way of the media. We got to expose this whole thing. We got to bring awareness to this because they're not speaking on it. They're staying away from this conversation, i.e., perpetuating the so-called Illuminati secret. But I yield with that.
Yeah, well, if you destroy the God, they can't exist either.
What was that?
I said, if they destroyed the gods, they can't exist either since we created everything.
The world knows that this is, without a doubt, the Holy Land. So this is not this. You better move wisely and carefully when it comes to dealing with that land. It's the Holy Land. Where is Moab? In Utah. Morocco. There's a Morocco in Illinois. There's a Rome in Georgia. There's an Athens in Georgia. There's an Algiers in Louisiana. Every country that you know of around planet Earth, that name exists on this land, in some town or some city. This is the Holy Land.
Red Sea is
like,
Red Sea is in California.
What's that?
I said the Red Sea is in California. They call it the Sea of
Right,
Cortez.
all that. And like Adolf told the world, the real Jews are the black man in America. There's a whole lot to this story, Moors. And who's holding on to those keys are other Moors that are behind the scenes. That's the bottom line. But I yield.
All right. So we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting here. It's been a great open discussion. Again, if you would like a copy of this study session, At this point, you can send me an email, and I'll be glad to send you over a copy of this. Um, so again, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting here at 10:45 p.m. Eastern Time. I appreciate you all for attending and all the participation, all the energy. With that stated, long live the Empire and His Majesty the Sultan. Islam Moors.
Long live the Empire and His Majesty the Sultan.
Live the empire and
Long live
especially
the
the
Long
Sultan.
live the
Empire,
Islam.
Empire and His Majesty the
King
Sultan.
Smith,
Long
Al-Kabir.
live the Empire and His Majesty the Sultan.
Peace and love, Morris.
Long live the Empire, His Majesty the Sultan. Peace.